The story began with a terrifying creature of inhuman strength reaching out a clawed hand toward the heroes, ordering them to listen in silence. The monarch's eyes shone with a cold light as the demon announced they would witness the greatest power of the Demon King. Long ago, a large continent existed here, where a fierce war raged between the army of demons and humankind in a world of darkness. The situation changed only when heroes from around the world came together to stop the violence. The battle was reaching its peak, and the outcome was closer than ever. The adventurers launched another attack. The Demon King tried to shield himself with a magic seal. Suddenly, the Demon Lord's body began to crumble, and pain and helplessness made him scream. At the last moment, he looked the wizard in the eyes and asked what had been done to him. On the 12th day of the month of twilight in the year 520, something irreversible happened through one of the heroes. At the age of 29, the story of Demon King Walter Sly came to an end. As he faded into the dark abyss, he realized he would not survive. At least, that was what he thought. But Ranzaluna said this would not happen. She felt sorry for him. But the moon would not want heirs to act so recklessly. She encouraged the girl to think carefully about herself. The air asked the moon to remain calm. Panic spread through the castle. People inside shouted to others to escape while they still could. One of the boys asked the girl to finish giving first aid and quickly bring a potion. A healer believed that everyone here would die. At the same time, a tough battle was going on between a group of powerful adventurers and a fierce earth dragon named Verge. The heroes could hardly believe what they saw. The dragon was in control of the basilisks that followed it everywhere. Supplies were running low, losses were increasing, and no one knew how to act. One of the adventurous girls stepped forward to face the wounded and firmly asked for permission to hold off the enemy. Iris knew she could not let anyone die here. The boys urged everyone else to keep fighting until the very end. The dragon was about to burn her with its breath, but the girl quickly dodged the fire and struck with her blade. The animal's breath felt overwhelming, but she knew she had to stay calm and regain her balance. The dragon attacked with all its strength, sending the girl flying and making her hit her back hard against a rock. The adventurer shouted that Iris was down and rushed over to her. Injured, Iris gripped her sword tightly and realized she had not even managed to activate the power of the holy blade Misael. She made up her mind that if this was the end, she wanted to finish the night with dignity. At that moment, someone else appeared in front of the dragon. Ayres had no idea who this person was. The girl stared at the stranger's silhouette, trying to understand what had just happened. For the first time, the stranger looked straight into the creature's eyes. It had no wings, but its powerful body showed it was definitely something dragon-like. Watching him face the monster was too much for Iris. She called out for him to run, but before she could finish, the dragon breathed fire. The girl dropped to her knees, feeling completely hopeless, but then she remembered her promise. She had vowed not to let anyone die. If only she had enough strength. To his surprise, Volt was still standing. He took a few steps forward and realized that from the outside, he looked completely human. The young man looked at his burning hand and was surprised that he felt nothing. Iris could not believe what she was seeing. The other just gave a crooked smile and said the attempt to turn him to stone was not bad. The dragon didn't understand what went wrong and bared its sharp teeth. The young man realized he looked weak, but he still had some royal strength. Without showing any fear, he walked up to the giant dragon. Unsure of his own limits, Walt chose to act and raised his right hand, ready to strike back. The thought struck Iris that this room held the elite 100 of the Royal Legion, the best 100 adventurers in the world, fully armed and prepared for any surprises. Even working together, they could not defeat this monster. Iris watched the boy fight alone. A smile stayed on his face as he dodged the dragon's powerful blow. Volt shook his fist and shouted that the beast would regret crossing paths with him. One strike was enough to bring down the monster. Right in front of Iris, the giant Verge crashed to the ground with a loud thud after a single strike from a stranger. No adventurer believed the hero fought with bare hands and defeated Verge. Curious Iris stood up, wanting to learn more about him. Nobody knew who he was or if he might be insane. Iris called out to the young man, apologizing as she carefully walked toward him while holding her injured hand against her chest. Calmly, she asked for his name to make sure he was the one who had defeated the dragon with his bare hands. The boy stayed silent, not understanding what she was talking about. She seemed friendly but spoke a different language. Walt realized he was in a new world and nodded when she asked him again to introduce himself. Eyes shifted to the fallen dragon, considering the next move. Walt stopped Iris with a gesture as she was about to ask more questions. He suddenly had an idea, remembering that one of his old skills could help in this situation. The defeated beast kept the ancient wisdom of dragons, including maps, information about the climate, plants, minerals, and the basics of mystical science. The girl started to speak but stopped when a strange magical energy washed over her. Walt realized he could suddenly understand her language and smiled. Iris asked again who he was. Walt thought she might use dark magic, but from her point of view, he was the only mysterious stranger. Iris realized that the boy had just pulled knowledge straight from the dragon's memory shell. Walt gave a crooked smile and admitted he did not understand her words, so he relied on what he knew from the dragon himself. The girl immediately asked him many questions about his strength and where he came from. Walt asked her to hold back her curiosity, while Iris bowed and thanked him for saving her. A joyful smile appeared on her face. Because of him, everyone was safe, and deep gratitude filled her heart. Embarrassed, the hero looked away and muttered that he was just defending himself, nothing more. Awkwardness filled the moment as Walt saw Iris in her torn clothes. She checked if he truly had no weapon and had fought the dragon with his bare hands. For Walt, this was just another ordinary day. One of the adventurers said that this was impossible and claimed that Walt was lying. The injured girl leaned on her weapon and said that Verge is a top-ranked tyrant and earth dragon who cannot be defeated by force. She admitted that Walt saved them, but added that it is too soon to trust him. The young man introduced himself as Volt, a name that sounded unusual to Iris. He still had not figured everything out, and it seemed like he had died and come back to life in this body. The girls fell silent while Walt calmly said they did not have to believe him, since he could barely believe it himself. At the same time, the other adventurer regained consciousness and could not believe Verge had fallen while she was out. Pointed ears give away that she is an elf. Volt asked how she was doing, but the elf waved him off, saying a bit of healing saliva would quickly close her wounds. Suddenly, a huge white wolf appeared nearby. Iris introduced the animal, and the elf was surprised she had not noticed it before. Walt realized this was a sacred creature. The boy reminded her that he had already introduced himself, so now it was Iris's turn. She apologized and said her name. Suddenly, the girl said that Miss Eris is the famous Ross Vase. Walt did not understand what she meant, and Iris just sighed, used to the fact that not everyone knows her heroic title. Ross Weiss means Knight of Pure Whiteness, a respected class of knights. Now Volta needs to be more careful because stories about her deeds are spreading everywhere. Iris blushed and stopped explaining. Next, Ranzaluna introduced herself, asking to be called Ran. The girl who had become human again gave her name as Lutasa Orf, a hunter. Both said they were glad to meet Walt. Lutasa hugged the white wolf and said his name is Kururu, but she is the only one who calls him Raku. Ran and Leutas blamed themselves for their shameful defeat, while Miss Ross was protecting them. Walt noticed their quiet, sad talk. Leutas smiled and reminded them they are Silver Wolf Knights and hinted at who their leader is. The story mentioned the sacred animal Kururu. Volt figured this out from the squad's name, and Leutas admired his clever thinking. She rushed to the young man and tried to hug him, thinking they were already friends. Walt stepped back and asked her to stop, but Leutas grabbed his cloak and accidentally tore the fabric. The girls gasped and closed their eyes when they saw Walt without clothes. Ranzaluna, blushing, handed him a cloak. Walt took it and joked that after a battle like that, even rags suit him. After finishing their conversation, the group decided to head back to the capital because the wounded needed help. The girl in the wide-brimmed hat, Helda, suggested saving the boys' questioning for later. With Verge dead and the mission complete, the next destination was the royal capital of Ario. Volta was impressed by the massive Adventurers Guild building. Leaving this place once meant fame, even for heroes who had once defeated him. Iris explained that she is not afraid, and brought him here because she does not see her rescuer as a criminal. She hopes he will understand and feel the same way. With a smile, Iris said that Imperial Knights and patrols now hunt monsters, so it is better to deal with a stranger on your own. Noticing he looked surprised, she explained that they were just ordinary adventurers, even if their reputation seemed unusual. Gelda asked if they really were the Knights of the Silver Wolf, and showed them the notice. Iris admitted that the name was unofficial and asked Walt to follow her. A knock at the door was followed by an apology for the intrusion. Inside, a woman holding a paintbrush welcomed them, saying she had been expecting their visit for a long time. A confident woman introduced herself as Hortensia, the head of the Ario Guild branch. Other adventurers had already given her a brief report, so she wanted to thank Walt for saving the team. The guy replied briefly that if he saw an attacker, he would strike first. The girls said most people would just run away. Hortensia invited him to sit down and calmly share the details, placing an unusual scale on the table. In response to Volt's question, she explained that she found them in the ruins, and that the artifact reveals the essence of life. Proud of the guildmaster's work and fond of adventurers, she watched as Walt noticed the trumpet sound and the cups ring out in surprise. The hero realized that the artifact only confirmed what she had said. Tansia smiled, and now everyone could see how the scales worked. After sitting down, Volt introduced himself as Valtus Sly, the former demon king and ruler of the continent of darkness who once sought to conquer the world. On that fateful day, he defended the castle from the heroes but failed. Tansia watched the scales. The needle did not move. He admitted that he cannot remember the crucial moment. He is sure that he died and only regained consciousness here. It seems like a transformation is happening, as some girls are interested in his new body while others look at Walt as if he is a ghost, their faces turning pale. Hortensia quietly stood up from her chair, adjusted her bangs, and confirmed there was no sign of a lie. The scales remained still, and Volt shrugged his shoulders, showing that everything he said was completely true. Suddenly, the guild mistress pulled the boy close, pressing him against her curves and calling him a poor soul who had gone through tough times, but he must have felt like the most powerful king. A gentle smile appeared on Tansia's face. The scales only react to lies told on purpose, so if he truly believed his story, the needle would not move. She herself is sure that demon kings exist only in fairy tales. In her view, the role of such a tyrant is to be defeated by the hero at the end of the legend, so she wondered why Walt was even thinking about it. Next, she claimed she was dealing with an outright pervert. Walt clenched his fist and thought that this bald fox was twisting his words and making the whole situation seem meaningless. Tansia warned that the boy was in danger. He did not really understand why, since he thought his second life was like hitting the jackpot. The woman pointed out that he has no documents, no home, no money, and his clothes are barely holding together. Plus, he is officially unemployed. Volt reacted strongly when someone called him unemployed, and others agreed that by definition, that was true. Tansia pointed at this boy and said that if he wanted to stay in the city, he had to become an adventurer because there was no other way. Volt protested angrily that joining the guild was not an option for him, and there was no way he would agree to it. Right now, though, he needed a guardian with social standing. Nervously, he explained that he had just arrived and did not know anyone trustworthy to guide or support him. Iris raised her hand and calmly offered to become his guardian. The other girls were left speechless. Someone was about to object, but Iris firmly stated her decision. There was no point in arguing, and Walt could see she would not change her mind. Tansia gratefully thanked Iris. Volt silently cursed the fox, while Iris encouraged him, saying that with so much strength, he would make an excellent adventurer. The young man tried to delay making a choice, but the girl assured him that with his abilities, nothing would stand in his way. She admitted she was impressed by his strength. Volt smiled slightly and admitted that he was also curious to see how far his new power could go. Luna invited Mrs. Iris to lunch and reminded her about the time. The conversation was still going, and Walt wanted to learn more about Iris. He sensed her important status, yet she stayed adventurous and mysterious, calling for a fresh exploration of the city. Eventually, Volt arrived at the training camp where newcomers received a rough welcome. An old instructor announced that today they would be throwing stones. The boy could not believe he was being made to go back to school and thought this was nothing compared to what he had already gone through. At this school, throwing stones all the time is not allowed, and being an adventurer is out of the question, the instructor explained. Walt realized that without following the rules, he might not even be able to pay for his studies. The old soldier shouted that everyone must keep throwing rocks until their arms are too tired. or he will make them shine the stones himself. The hero lifted the heavy stone, looked at the pitiful figure, and while swinging the stone, ordered it to kneel. Without fully understanding how, Walt threw the rock and it burst with a flash like a meteor. The students stood silent, and the teacher fell down with his mouth open. Someone shouted "Meteoric Armageddon" after recognizing a powerful form of black magic. Volt simply smiled, as if it was just another normal event for someone so experienced. The students could hardly believe what they saw as the legendary spell was cast right in the middle of the courtyard. This moment will stay in their memory forever, even if they never understand why he did it. The ground split open and red battle worms crawled out of the cracks. The teachers started shouting when they recognized the dangerous war worms. Some people thought the worms caused the explosion and wanted to run, but Walt understood that this was just a test from the guild, a perfect chance to prove their strength. The plan worked as the hero clicked the fear shield and activated a new ability. The second explosive stone landed in the crowd as he asked where their king was. A powerful burst tore apart the worms. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, believing the fight was finally over. The mentor realized that both explosions were caused by one student. Creating such power with a single stone meant this student had incredible talent, the marks of a true master. Volt smiled, glanced at the torn bodies of the worms, and said they were foolish creatures, as he turned back to what he was doing. Suddenly, a loud roar shook the ground. The teacher turned pale as the king of battle worms appeared. Volt welcomed the guest warmly. Despite being a worm, the title deserved respect, so the hero got ready for the duel. The students stood frozen in fear as the giant worm swallowed Walt in one swift movement. Laughter echoed from inside as the hero tore the creature apart from within and called the sight amazing. The teacher stood shocked, seeing someone defeat the king with bare hands. Rising above the hills, Walt realized this world felt almost the same as his own. Every morning and evening, life steadily moved toward the future. This is the greatness of the world that is worth leading. Now, no one cares about the crushing defeat it once suffered. Walt landed gently, took a deep breath, and said goodbye to the king of worms. The impressed teacher grabbed Walt's hands and started giving him compliments. Admiration shone in the mentor's eyes as he asked for the chosen one's name, wanting to praise this person in front of all the students. The teacher said that this young man, even before becoming an adventurer, had already defeated the red worms and their leader. Walt did not understand what was happening. The students thanked him and lifted him onto their shoulders, and this is how the legend of Mr. V began. Walt raised his hands, asking to be let down. Someone wanted to shake his hand, others asked for an autograph or an interview, but the hero firmly refused. Watching from the window, the old wizard in the pointed hat noticed the boy's impressive strength and checked the papers. His guardian was Mrs. Iris. Adjusting his glasses, the mage noticed some odd numbers in the introductory report. The volt level was clearly off, and it was strange that no one else seemed to notice. Reviewing the statistics at the guild after the release seemed like the best option, he decided, as he placed a large seal. That would make everything clear. Eventually, the Royal School of Adventurers gave Walter the title of Apprentice Knight Level 0. Classmates eagerly welcomed the new genius, while Walt simply waved them off, asking everyone to calm down. News was spreading around the city about a young man who earned his graduation title on the very first day of school. Everyone was talking about him. Stories were spreading in the city about a young man who had defeated the Worm King. At the Ortantia Guild, people called him Volt. The master took a sip of wine, feeling completely happy. Everyone in the hall talked only about the hero. Leaning closer to the guildmaster, Iris realized she needed more to do but still hoped the guildmaster would take a break. The dance helped Iris feel calmer. No visitors had arrived today, so everything seemed fine, but she still worried about the fox hostess. Gelda sighed and said this was pure shamelessness and lack of decency. Tanzia laughed and complimented her honest words and sharp wit. A heavy sigh escaped Iris as she realized there was no point trying to convince Hortensia, so she dropped the argument. The guildmistress smiled and said, "Enough talking. Let's get to business, girls. You won't believe what I found out." Papers with statistics about the incredibly strong Volt were opened in front of her. Seeing a 0 level in the chart, Iris felt surprised because she had never come across this before. Tanthea was equally surprised when Volt brought her a graduation diploma on the same day he enrolled in school. "Unbelievable," she said. "Before, the fastest ones took a month, but this guy finished in just a few hours." She remembered that Gelda was just 10 years old when she set the record, but even this does not explain Walt's strange 0 score. Most adventurers usually start at the first level. Helda thought the examiner might have made a mistake. Tanthea put down her glass because there was no doubt. The artifact showed clearly that Walt's level was 0. The meaning of 0 remains unknown, but its power is undeniable. Helda asked impatiently about the real level of the hero, but Tanthea just shrugged. Nobody could really imagine it. Iris remembered the excitement among the students as they talked about how the new kid had defeated 100 red worms and even their king all by himself. The students found it hard to believe that one boy managed to handle such a large group. Iris immediately realized who it was about. Walt's power seemed limitless. A quick glance at the skills section left her surprised. The page seemed almost unreal, as if the analyzer could not capture all of his abilities. Gelda suggested checking the central characteristics, which also show constant irregularities. Tanichia admitted that she was most impressed by Volta's unpredictable energy, a wild spirit not often seen. Throughout history, even the most ruthless tyrants never scored higher than 80, but Walt achieved the highest possible score. Gelda agreed that numbers do not lie, but they do not tell the whole story either. Tancha mentioned that Iris is at the other end of the spectrum, on the lawful side. Iris felt confused, realizing that she and Walt were natural opposites. For this reason, Helda explained that she planned to watch both of them closely as an interesting experiment. Tanthea remembered their last mission and asked Helda for details, since she suspected Helda could defeat an earth dragon even in her sleep. The fox laughed and said, "Clever as always." In response, Helda winked as a friendly gesture. Both agreed that letting Walt continue unchecked was not an option. Gelda pulled out a thin book, and, noticing her friends' surprised looks, explained that it was not the original, but just a simple guide. Now was the time to follow the instructions. In her hands, Tanthea holds the Brichem prophecies, and immediately thinks of the witch, realizing that she and Helda were right about the levels. Flipping through the book, memories of witch battles from over a century ago come to mind. Helda asks to turn to page 13 since old Brichem passed away from old age long ago. The text says, "In the year 999 of the continental calendar, under a red full moon, the gates of the world will open and the great king of terror will appear." Tanthea counts and sees it is now the year 999 with leap days added, and everything matches up. Helda confirms that this year April will come a second time. That same night, the scarlet moon shone over Volt. Iris had never seen anything like it before, while Helda explained it as a rare natural phenomenon. The prophecy calls Volt a mythical king of terror, and the title actually amuses Tanthea. With a smile, she asks Iris not to take everything literally, but the girl reminds her that the scales showed the hero is telling the truth. The holy scales reveal every lie. So deep down, Volt truly believes he is the demon king. Tanthea lets out a sigh, having met many adventurers before, but never one quite like this. Iris senses there are still many surprises ahead. The girl misses Tanthea's hint and only looks up when Tanthea suddenly grabs the top of her head and gives her a quick lick on the cheek. Iris steps back in shock. Tanthea points out this is the first time she has seen her show any interest in a man, and suggests that she is reading too much into the situation. The craftswoman admits that Walt's strength is impressive and makes her want to be a little like him. Just one strike against the dragon stirred her heart. The moon rattles on the table, making plates jump, a reminder to Iris about her status and proper behavior. A warning is given not to fall for the mysterious newcomer. Iris insists that this impression is wrong, while Lutus hands Rancy an expensive piece of meat. Luna tells Lutus that he only cares about food. The offended hunter replies that Luna worries too much about Iris. Luna replies that men like Curves, and Lutasa teases her about why she hides her own. This sparks an argument. Tanthea clears her throat and asks the girls not to turn the conflict into a two-part drama. A gentle suggestion invites Iris to move to a separate room for a private conversation without others overhearing. Gelda believes that arguing is pointless, but Tanthea still hopes that the Silver Wolf Knights, a true dream team, can make a difference. With a gentle smile and lowered ears, she asks if Volt can join your team. Luna feels upset because men are not allowed in the group, but Iris thinks Luna is overreacting. After the argument, Luna agrees to think about it and asks what should be done with Volt next. Tansia promises to handle everything as soon as he completes the adventure-related documents. For now, there is full control. At night, Walt sleeps in a large but run-down room. The building has cracks and needs repairs. In the morning, he sits up quickly, remembers he is in a cheap inn, but realizes he actually slept well. The city outside his window is starting to wake up. A new life looks very different now. Instead of death, there is a dawn of new possibilities. Walt senses that the real story is only just beginning. Lost in thought by the window, he hears a quiet knock as the maid checks if Mr. Volt is still awake. The voice recalls the past when devoted fans never left him alone. Back then, women constantly knocked on Prince Walt's door, hoping for his favor. Now he is careful to avoid new persistent admirers. Taking a deep breath, Walt says he will open the door now, ready to face the day and whatever challenges it brings. Volt remembered how in the past, vain beauties chased after him only for his fame and money. He asked the visitor where she was from, and she replied that she was from the guild. The main character unlocked the door and let the guest in. A girl in a fancy skirt politely apologized for the disturbance earlier that morning. She greeted with a good morning and introduced herself as Elsie, an employee from the Arios guild departments. From now on, she would be responsible for handling Mr. Walt's matters. Most of the time, Elsie works at the front desk, so she let him know he can always come to her with any questions. Volt asked for a moment and assumed she was just doing her job as a maid. The girl laughed because her role is to support the talented newcomer in every possible way. The hero realized he was already seen as an adventurer, even though he still was not sure if he wanted that. Elsa explained that Tantia wrote an excellent recommendation, and Iris added her signature, so Walt's reputation in the guild is now strong. The girl suggested that with qualities like his, he could have been a knight, but Volt avoided the idea, saying he would never let anyone control him. Elsie gave a small smile. No matter what happens, he will be a remarkable adventurer. The honesty in her eyes left Walt feeling uncertain. With a sigh, he agreed to accept help. Elsie hesitated briefly, not immediately realizing what he meant. Finally, suitable clean clothes were chosen for him, and with satisfaction, she announced that everything was ready. Volt praised her work, and Elsie was surprised that the hero appreciated care. With a playful poke to his nose, she reminded him not to get used to this because he should dress himself. With a playful wink, Elsie called it a half-habit. Walt blushed when he saw the dimples on her cheeks. He explained that she misunderstood everything and, feeling embarrassed, hid under the blanket. A quiet giggle came from Elsie, as she noticed how cute Walt looked when he was embarrassed. Walt muttered and asked everyone to forget about what happened. Later, Walt went downtown to get his license and the title of Apprentice Level 0. It still felt unreal to him that he had become an adventurer. While looking at the map, he decided this was a legal way to make money, even though old habits kept telling him that human laws meant nothing. Pushing away his dark thoughts, Walt kept walking when a girl quietly approached and apologized to him. The long-haired beauty handed him a flower and looked at him with wide, innocent eyes. Volt picked a delicate flower and commented on its beauty. The girl's face lit up with happiness. She explained that it costs only 10 lions. Volt instinctively reached for his pocket, but remembered his wallet was almost empty. After apologizing, he admitted that he had just arrived in the city and did not have any money yet. At that moment, someone in the crowd pushed a girl roughly and told her not to block the way. She fell, and her flowers scattered. Rika, the elf who cared for flowers, quickly gathered petals as a rude stranger stepped on one and crushed it. The slug lizard stuck out its long tongue with a sly grin, smearing the flower across the cobblestones. 2 reptilian mercenaries recognized Rika and mocked her for finally finding a so-called respectable job. Some lizards suggested she should sell flowers instead of practicing black magic, but it seemed she paid no attention to their words. One of them warned that she was damaging the guild's reputation. Another nudged his companion after noticing that Walt was watching the situation closely. Volt couldn't hold back and called out "stupid lizards" while carefully focusing on the flower he held. The reptiles turned around, looking for the one bold enough to insult them. He repeated the insult and casually watched their anger while holding the flower stem tightly. The main lizard moved closer, wanting an explanation, but Walt just smiled. The lizard man grew even angrier, Unable to understand what the laughter was about, Walt suggested taking a break from talking and having some fun, snapping his fingers with a playful spark. With a quick touch on the scaly nose, the fierce lizard changed into a crying girl. Terrified, the girl rushed into the arms of her reptilian brother, begging him to run away. The confused brother asked for an explanation, while Walt shrugged and said he only wanted to add the chicken status. But something went wrong. Suddenly, the transformed lizard confessed love to his brother and gently kissed him. Walt did not expect this to happen. The brother, close to tears, shouted that the hero had ruined their lives. Walt calmly explained the effect would wear off in about a month, pointed out that white magic will remove the temporary status. The lizard man stepped back and decided to heal his brother first. Passers-by watched with surprise, thinking the reptiles were in trouble. Rika bowed her head and thanked Walt for helping. He handed her the flower that had survived and told her not to worry about small things. Realizing that Rika was also an adventurer, Walt noticed her nervousness and politely said goodbye. Waved goodbye and wished for inspiration in upcoming adventures. Watching him leave, Rika whispered with admiration about Walt's incredible magic. Suddenly realizing the time, she hurried off so she would not be late. They expected her at the guild office right at 9. At the door, a smiling Elsie greeted her in the morning and invited her inside. Breathing heavily, Rika handed over the letter. Elsie grew worried as soon as she recognized the seal. An official notice arrived, saying that the so-called troublesome newcomer was starting to gain unwanted attention. After expressing thanks, Elsa led Rika to Bartolin's office while wondering what was happening inside. The river greeted quietly, while the guildmaster's wife invited her closer with a friendly smile. Bartolin waved cheerfully and explained that she wanted to ask Riku for a favor. Anxiety made the girl freeze, but the supervisor calmly suggested relaxing, saying the task was actually quite interesting. If Rika refuses, she will be allowed to go, but she will have to give up her license. A frightened elf asked not to take the document and requested to say the task aloud. Bartolin said she would enjoy the task. Yesterday, someone named Volt registered. Did you hear? The newcomer's name is being talked about, but there are still a lot of mysteries surrounding this person. The leader openly stated that Volt is incredibly powerful and can destroy an entire country or even the world if he wants to. Rika put her hands on her head, feeling terrified by the prophecy about the possible end of the world. Bartolin nodded, reminding that this topic had come up before. The girl, shaking, kept saying that this was impossible, but the guild mistress calmly explained it was only a metaphor and that Volt would not destroy the planet. Suddenly, the fox asked how much money Rika had. Embarrassed, the elf asked to hear the question again, hardly believing what she had heard. Holding out her wallet, she showed there were only 13 lions inside. Bartolin laughed and said it would only be enough for a few rolls. She whispered that noble elven blood calls for proper behavior. Suggesting that it might be best to postpone any adventures, the leader advised taking time to think things through carefully. With tears in her eyes, Rika said that her only dream is to be an adventurer. Memories of the dark wizard from her childhood fairy tale came to mind, the one who first sparked her interest in magic. Bartolin reminded everyone that Rika's mother is sick and her father disappeared while traveling. Smiling, she called the girl a stubborn kitten and offered a solution. The fox held up a shiny gold coin as a reward for completing a special task. The generosity left Rika breathless. She already imagined paying off her debts and buying medicine for her mother. Bartolin clarified that the mission is secret. There are few candidates, but the girl is perfect for it. This job needs someone brave, someone who can work alone and is not afraid of Volt. The fox winked and said, "And with lovely curves." Rika blushed and started to fold her cloak. The manager apologized and explained clearly that this is why Rika is the best choice. The elf hesitated, feeling sorry for Volt, but knew she would lose everything if she acted differently. In the end, agreement was reached. Bartolin smiled and tossed a coin to the girl. The river almost caught it, but the guildmaster playfully sent the coin back using gravity. The girl silently blamed her boss for making harsh jokes. Bartolin, noticing how confused Rika was, handed over the payment and explained the condition. Establish contact with Volt, form a team with him, use any available methods, and return in 3 days. 3 days passed and Elsie firmly knocked on Walt's door. She keeps calling out, asking for the door to be opened right away. Volt hears the noise and slowly walks towards the door. He opens them, not yet aware of the challenge waiting right at the doorstep. Tired and annoyed, Volt opened the door and grumbled at Elsie, asking why she was so early. Elsie greeted him and asked how he was feeling. He said his health was fine and thought she had come just to ask that question. Still, he felt relief that he managed to get dressed in time. Elsie smiled and reminded him that 3 days had passed since he got his license, wondering if the hero had forgotten. Volt did not understand what was going on, so Elsie explained that he was officially allowed to take on tasks, but he had never actually showed up at the guild. He shrugged as if to say things were not that simple. Still, Elsa insisted that he should have already taken something. Volt got confused and admitted honestly that he didn't know where to begin. He used to do exhausting work every day without any breaks. Now everything is different. Elsie barely listened, but Walt saw understanding in her eyes. She introduced herself as Henrika Estolendel, a first-level dark mage. He quickly realized this was Rika using an alias. Volt remembered that the guild had already paid for his room, and the insects that lived there had run away in fear. There was nothing left to fear as life became calm and comfortable. But Elsie grabbed him by the shoulders and warned that if this continues, he will become lazy and useless. The word parasite hit Volta hard, like a bolt of lightning. Elsie explained that the guild could not support him forever. She also mentioned that there is a risk of losing the license. This was something he had never considered before. Grabbing his hand, she led him toward the guild. It was time to act. With a smile, Elsie promised to turn him into a real adventurer. Volt asked for a moment because his heart was not ready. Elsie reassured him that she would teach him with kindness. Soon they arrived at the guild. Volt imagined hunting dragons and finding treasures, but Elsie reminded him to start with something simple. No matter how strong he is still a beginner. Completing basic tasks is necessary to understand how the job works. She handed him a card with the first task. Volt looked displeased but agreed, recognizing her effort. Before leaving, you asked again just to be sure. You're not sending me out to pick mushrooms, are you? Elsie nodded seriously and explained that everyone new starts with this because otherwise you will not survive. She warned that those who believe they are special are often the first to fall. Volt did not understand her point until he heard about the equipment. He thought he was doing just fine without it. Elsie agreed that her abilities would be enough for a beginner quest. Suddenly, another adventurer tripped on the stairs and fell right at Rika's feet. With a shy bow, she thanked Walt for saving her. Elsie smiled and asked with delight if they knew each other. Introducing himself as Walter Sly, he asked to be called Walt. The color drained from Rika's face. Volt noticed her reaction and realized something had happened. Rika quickly pulled herself together and said everything was fine. She had no idea she would see him again, and so soon. Taking the chance, Elsie suggested, "Since everything is fine, can you help Walt with his quest? This task is perfect for beginners." Elsa explained that Rika's elf blood gives her the ability to find healing mushrooms. This made the girl feel shy since she is only a half-elf. Elsa assured that Rika is not too busy, but Rika brushed it off, saying she is not worthy of such a partner. Rika wonders if Volta will enjoy her company. Volta simply reminds her that he is also new here, just like her. Else gives her word that Rika can be trusted. Walt agrees to let her join the team. Smiling, she asked Rick not to use magic during the quest. The girl nodded sadly. Walt was surprised to hear that she was a dark sorceress, but Elsie asked him not to pay attention to it. The river let out a gentle sigh. A mage without magic is like a person without purpose. These words made Elsie uneasy. A friend says Rika has many good qualities and asks for an example, but Elsie cannot think of one. An idea comes to mind. Rika looks attractive and stylish, the kind that often sparks a bit of envy in other women. Jokingly mentioned she could have been a backup dancer, but Rika is afraid of being on stage and feels uncomfortable in social situations. Volt notices that these girls are complete opposites, like a closed circle. Suddenly, a noisy group bursts into the hall, celebrating their victory over a single goblin. When they see Rika, they mock her and wonder if this friendly elf is still working as an adventurer. The leader grumbles about the quest to find her being cancelled and feels disappointed. Volt sees bullying as an insult to his vassal and considers himself the lord. Behind the troublemakers, the sound of a broken window rings out. They flinch, unsure what caused it. Volt calmly suggests that maybe a troublemaker threw a small stone, as things like that happen here. The leader looks upset and says this is the capital, not a village. Volt suggests they should pack up and leave. Elsie asks everyone to leave carefully to avoid getting cut by the broken pieces. Rika glances at the window in surprise while Elsie gives Walt a suspicious look, quietly comes closer, and whispers, "If this was your doing." Volt smiles and says a thank you would be nice. Elsie takes a deep breath, knowing she will let it go this time, but next time she will speak up. Volt suggests Ritza should leave while Elsie is cleaning, and Ritza agrees. Her stomach growls loudly. Walt remembers he also skipped breakfast and invites her to grab something to eat. Soon the couple walks into the forest where Rika quietly talks to Walt. As he chews, the girl asks if the payments he received from the guild are normal. Volt explains that while profits are unstable, the guild covers them, as Elsie mentioned. Rika wonders what comes after the mushroom quest and mentions hearing rumors about a new four. Volt smiles mysteriously after hearing the same rumors and is already thinking about how to turn the gossip into his own fame. Tossing the mushroom-shaped hat into the air, he says, "Let's start with something small and finish with a legend." According to stories, this is where new adventurers often come. The forest is also a well-known eco-trail for tourists. A smooth road has followed the clearing for a long time, showing that many travelers and adventurers often pass this way. The calm all around made Volta feel uneasy. He was about to ask Rika what she thought when the girl suddenly flinched. Animals watched from the bushes as Volt reassured his companion that she was safe now under his protection and had nothing to fear. Remembering the sketch for the guild's Atlas of the Lizer River, the hero asked Rick if the plants here ever harmed people. The girl shrugged, looking confused. Walt explained that in his world, this was a normal thing. Just sitting on a stump is enough for the tree to swallow a traveler completely. Rika listened with wide eyes. A chill ran down her spine when Walt called that land his homeland. The girl silently apologized. The hero just waved his hand, telling not to worry about small things. There are many more unusual stories he can share. Even the forest monsters avoid Volt, as if they sense danger around him. A beautiful view appeared ahead, the Alma Lake, known as the highlight of local tourism. The quest leads to an island in the middle of the lake, where a valuable healing mushroom called Wisdom Mushroom grows beneath the god tree. Rika suggested taking a boat, but Walt disagreed and said the distance was short enough that it was not worth spending extra time. Reached out a hand and asked for trust. At first, the girl thought she would need to swim. The hero simply picked her up and promised to take her for a walk. With a single leap, soared into the sky. Sparks lit up Ritzi's eyes and a river duck stretched its neck with curiosity. Walt gently landed on the island and set the girl down. Their goal reached. The river fell to its knees and began to cry, overwhelmed by the flight. Volt did not understand what had happened. He suggested they look for mushrooms more quickly. He did not know the exact spot, so Rika tried hard to remember the clues. Suddenly, armored beetles jumped out from the vines and the girl shivered, wondering why such creatures would be near the sacred tree. A few insects are not a problem, she thought, but dozens of them could overpower even Volt. Like a dark sorceress, Rika decided to act and summon the fire god who gave fire to humanity. With her palms on the ground, she whispered a fire prayer, calling on its wisdom. Volt tried to stop the girl, but it was too late as the spell had already burst into flames. Reaching out, Rika released a giant ball of fire. Seeing the flashes, she believed she had succeeded. Henrika Estolendel was born with a large amount of mana, a rare gift for a half-elf. From a young age, a fascination with dark wizards from fairy tales inspired her to dedicate her life to her dreams. That first real mission turned into a nightmare with screams, pain, and desperate pleas for help. During that raid, 9 comrades lost their lives because of her own so-called friendly fire, and the memory of that nightmare still remains. The intense pressure of the battle caused all of Rika's spells to turn into large areas of effect. If a truly powerful enemy suddenly appeared before her, the consequences would be disastrous, and she would be held responsible for them. Fortunately, the team survived at that time. Without her fire, the group might not have made it. Still, the fact remains. She hurt those who trusted her with their lives. One of them later called Rika a cursed, friendly elf. The scar on his heart and the hatred stayed with him forever. After that, rumors kept spreading. Rika dropped to her knees in front of Volt, crying and asking for forgiveness. Confidence faded as guilt returned for hurting an ally and feeling unworthy of the title of Black Mage. With tears streaming down her face, the girl did not notice when Volt quietly came over and gently asked what had happened. Rika thought she saw a ghost and jumped up. Walt joked that he was still alive. Dropping to her knees again, she apologized over and over, but Walt stopped her and told her she was wrong. Brushing ash from his scorched cloak, he said that those who disrespect her, including herself, do not understand real power. This fire is nothing like friendly fire. Volt remembered a time when he accidentally tore off his father's arm, but it grew back right away, which actually frightened him. Rika thought the hero wanted to make her laugh. Walt just winked, showing that her fire did not hurt him. She has more mana than most people. With continued training, it's possible to wipe out an army of 30,000 soldiers in a single attack. So now everything depends on her. One day, she might become the Emperor's court mage. Rika didn't understand what was happening, but she felt relieved that Volt was safe and asked for a handkerchief. Volt gently wiped the tears from her face. Seeing the blackened fabric, a sigh escaped him. Someone else in his place might not have survived. Fear filled Riku once again. She grabbed her head when she saw that even the divine tree had turned black. The sacred tree could not withstand her flames. Tears flowed more as the river thought about how grateful it felt to Walt for his support, even though they had not known each other long. The woman explained that destroying an elf tree is a serious crime with severe punishments, ranging from beheading to being burned at the stake, and the entire family would suffer as a result. Volt lost control and said that tears would not help. The problem needs to be solved. The river realized escape was impossible, as the guild knew her location, so she had no choice but to accept her punishment. Volt suggested a last resort. Take his mother and run away, but promise to be honest if he gets caught. Rika just called herself foolish, and that shows who she really is. At this moment, a small spirit named Enzel who lived in the tree appeared before them. Volt caught the fairy in his hand. Enzel looked on with surprise, amazed that a mortal could see and touch her. The river seemed surprised as well. Walt asked for silence and spoke to the spirit, saying that if Enzel dies, things will become even worse. That fairy could not return to the scorched tree because it had been burned by the hellfire, a sign that the world was ending. She believed that a war had already started somewhere. Walt asked for details on how to restore the sanctuary. Enzel replied that it would take magic equal to the power of 100 elves. Rika protested, saying it was impossible. Volt just smiled and said, I could sell or even give away enough mana for 100 elves. That is only as much power as 30,000 people, right? Enzel wondered if the hero could hear her, and reminded him that one person's tricks are not enough. Walt just smiled, showing he was different from the rest. He suggested taking everything. Raising his hand, he passed the mana to the tree and wished the spirit Enzel a peaceful life in this world. The fairy shook from the unexpected strength of the magic. She could not understand where such power came from in him. Tears welled up in Enzel's eyes as an honest, raw surge of strength filled her, something she had never felt before. The hero noticed his fingers tangled in the branches of the tree as the fairy now absorbed his mana herself. Her cheeks tightened as she tried to understand what was happening. This feeling was completely new to her. Rika watched all of this, unable to understand how it was possible. It felt like they were inside a dream. Right in front of her, the divine tree began to come back to life. Volt asked Enzel how she was feeling. Happiness lit up her face as she said she would live for tens or even hundreds of thousands of years more. She then offered the hero a gift, a glowing apple from her new branches. Volt took the fruit and recognized it as the legendary Enzel apple. The spirit was surprised that he knew about it. Something like this happened only once in 1,000 years, but for Walt, it was simply a gift, and he had no plans to sell it. The moment he touched the fruit, his whole body weakened, and he dropped to his knees. The river caught him to keep him from falling. She called his name, but Walt did not respond. Enzel guessed that he had fainted after using too much power. She thanked him and then disappeared into thin air. The river smiled warmly and suggested the hero take a short rest. This boy something was different about him. The woman placed him beneath the tree and said he had earned his rest. After a while, Walt started to regain consciousness and slowly opened his eyes. The first thing in his view was Rika's chest, right in front of his face. She adjusted her hair and smiled, asking how he was feeling. Volt admitted that even though some rest would be nice, he would rather enjoy a tasty meal. The river turned pale as the main character noticed some mushrooms that looked tasty, but all of them were poisonous. She explained that poisonous mushrooms often look and smell appealing. Volt thanked her for saving him. The river felt embarrassed and brushed it off, saying she had not done anything special. Suddenly, the promise of new clothes came to mind. Walt explained he got them for free. Still, the elf insisted on paying him back. For now, she suggested they have something to eat. Suddenly, Volt remembered the divine fruit and quickly picked it from the branch. Rika shouted in fear, realizing this was a priceless artifact. It must be kept safe or handed over to an antique shop. Walt shrugged and said, "It's just a fruit. If we don't eat it, it will rot. So what's the point?" In his view, enjoying a fresh fruit in such perfect condition is a real privilege. Lifting the apple, he admired it with a proud grace. For a moment, Rika believed he might truly come from a noble family. She offered to share the fruit, but Walt did not understand. Instead, he handed her the fruit himself, letting them taste it together. The river felt surprised that it could touch the legendary apple. Walt insisted on splitting it in half. Accepting the fruit felt like the greatest honor for the river. Rika picked up the fruit, politely apologized, took out a pocket knife, and carefully cut the apple in half. As she handed her half to Volt, he praised her for her effort. Holding the fruit, Rika found it hard to believe what was happening. This was a truly historic moment. Volt admitted that eating with others watching him was difficult, so he suggested they eat together on the count of 3. At the count of 3, both took a bite of their half of the legendary fruit. Volt closed his eyes, enjoying the incredible taste, as if he had melted among the stars. Meanwhile, Rika, on her knees, swallowed each bite with trembling excitement. She whispered something in her native language, then, feeling shy, covered her face with her hands and asked to forget what was heard. Walt did not see anything wrong with this. Instead, he had another important offer for her. Reached out a hand to the girl and asked if she would like to join him. Rika had already started to realize what he was trying to say. Walt really did offer her to be his partner. Tears of joy appeared in her eyes. Seeing her tears, Walt felt confused again. Rika apologized for showing her emotions. For the first time, someone truly invited her to join the team. Happiness overwhelmed her and she could not hold back her emotions. Walt sighed and mentioned she was taking things too seriously. Her magic had not hurt him. He reached out his hand to her with confidence. Together, they would help her leave behind the label of Fire Mage's friend. Rika agreed with a smile. At the same time, in the northeast of the kingdom of Lahar, waves crashed against the Velden Mountains. In the heart of the wild, an extraordinary power was felt. A mother's prophecy was beginning to come true. Those prophecies spoke about the arrival of a powerful demon. A small round creature with an eye patch asked Dasha if she was planning to go to the capital. Dasha replied sharply that she hated that kind of nonsense. Filled with anger, Dasha unleashed her power and declared that this journey would turn out even worse than she had expected. Despite spending a lot of mana, Volt still wanted to take action. Elsie advised him to rest for a week. Even in Lizark Hine, boredom quickly set in for him. Without hesitation, he jumped out of the window and headed toward the city. After landing, he almost stepped on a black cat, which reminded him how important it was to stay unnoticed. The hero once dreamed of owning a castle and painting its walls black to make it look like a demon lord's fortress. For now, though, thoughts of breakfast came to mind instead. Stepping into the market, he bought a snack and sat at a table, thinking about the future. Earlier, Elsie reminded him to buy armor. After breakfast, he had only 2,000 Ryans left. There was not enough for new armor. The guild gear annoyed him, especially after Rika's magic. Changing clothes after every explosion felt much easier. First, Rick needed to stop having sudden outbursts. Volt knew that improvement required repetition. Practice is the best teacher. If she becomes a stronger dark mage, that will also benefit him. Lost in thought, he found himself on an unfamiliar street and decided to turn back. But then a voice caught his attention. A shout warned to be careful, and Walt looked up just in time to see a dark figure falling from the sky toward him. Before he could understand what was happening, his instincts led him to catch the girl mid-jump to keep her from falling. A smiling girl thanked Volt for being there at the right moment. Meeting in this place felt like a strange coincidence. After helping her up, the hero asked with surprise how she knew his name. The girl let her hair down, and Walt was stunned to recognize Iris, who he was used to seeing only in armor. Rumors had already reached her that he finished the academy on the very first day and immediately started working on the assignment, but their conversation was interrupted by noise from the street. Volt tensed up, sensing trouble was coming while Iris looked worried and seemed to be planning something. As his guardian, she had the right to ask him for a favor, and did so with some hesitation. Iris whispered, "Take me away." And in that moment, Walt's mind went completely blank. Soldiers rushed over and shouted at the hero to get away from the lady. The soldiers warned that there would be no mercy if he resisted. Stunned, Walt looked at Iris. Dressed in a wedding gown, she looked away and explained that some bad people were after her. The hero frowned and reached out his hand to Iris, saying, "All right, I'm taking you with me." Lifting the girl in his arms, he pushed through the crowd as the soldiers shouted to catch him. Iris warned there was a barricade ahead, but Walt just held on tighter and told her to hang on. With a single leap, he landed on the roof. The soldiers stared in disbelief, unsure if he was even human. Blending in with the crowd, Walt suggested they stop by the nearest store to change her dress. Iris felt awkward because she didn't have her wallet with her. The hero has only 2,000 Ryans. He promised to pay, but felt unsure if that amount would cover women's clothes. On their way, they met a cheerful acquaintance, Iris Shiren, a rare ally. The girl was surprised when she saw her friend walking arm in arm with a man. Volt thought it was a stalker, but Iris assured him it was just a friend. Shiren smiled warmly at the hero. Volt impatiently reminded everyone that the soldiers were still alert. Iris asked for a moment of patience. With a playful smile, Shiren noticed the interest of the new celebrity newcomer and complimented Iris on her skin. In response, her friend asked for the secret behind such a figure. Shireen laughed and said she was eating dragon eyes, while Iris calmly asked her to bring some next time, which surprised Walt. Iris handed Shiren a cloak to cover her dress. Her friend thanked her and said goodbye. After Shiren disappeared, Walt asked what to do next. Iris was surprised that he did not ask about her story. The man said he would listen whenever she wanted to share. Gently placing a hand on her head, he said that now was not the right moment for confessions. Iris thanked him, even though Walt felt there was no need for thanks. An idea came to her that the hero was looking for an armor shop. Volt agreed, and Iris said she knew a good place. Taking him by the hand, she led him down the street as Walt smiled and followed her. In a moment, they stopped by the shop called Dragon God's Scale. The hero thought about the 2,000 Ryans in his pocket, but Iris gently reminded him that looking around doesn't cost anything. Iris is the first to enter the armor shop and greets the seller, Doman. The old man only recognizes her after a moment of surprise. Her surprise grows when she notices the boy standing next to her. Iris introduces Walt as a newcomer she is looking after. Doman remembers the name and notices that everyone in town seems to be talking about this boy. Iris confirms that he is the hero who defeated the dragon. The young man says he wants to look at armor. Doman asks about his budget and, hearing it is 2,000 Ryans, offers only older items. Volt asks to see everything with any kind of magical protection. The old man stands up and heads to the shelves. Doman takes out a few items. Iris is surprised by Walt's choices and decides to find out the reason behind them. She asks why he needs protection from magic. Volt sighs and says he has a reason. Now the truth comes out. He knows about Henrik Estelendol and the incident called Friendly Fire, and wants to make sure nothing like that happens again. Iris senses that he wants to work with her, but she is not sure if it is a good idea. Still, Volt insists he needs protection specifically from magic. Iris suggests moving closer to the wall, and Volt does not understand the reason. Suddenly, she wraps her arms around him from behind. Volt, red as a tomato, asks what she thinks she is doing. Even Doman looks away. Iris suggests imagining that his clothes are his skin. This way, the magical armor will appear. Volt is not sure if this will work. Iris smiles and says, "You won't know until you try." She gives a sign to start. Volt closes his eyes and focuses, trying to sense the magical currents and form a protective shield. Meanwhile, Iris asks about weapons. Doman says there is only one sword, which someone left behind. Iris grabs her sword and suddenly strikes at Walt, letting him know before she attacks. The blade shatters into pieces as soon as it touches his hand. Iris, surprised, announces that he did it and the magic armor is now active. Doman asks who will pay for the broken sword. Iris jokes that the former owner should cover the cost. Both of them promise to pay, although it is not entirely clear who actually made the promise. Doman just sighs. The old man asks them to leave. They thank him and go. Volt now has magic armor and no longer needs regular armor. Feeling uncomfortable about not paying, he hears Iris explain that Damen simply respects strength. Volt decides to remember this craftsman. Iris suggests visiting one more shop. Once more, Iris grabs Walt's hand, but he asks her to wait a moment. Iris warns him that they are running out of time. At that moment, Rika walks by them. Seeing Walt with Iris, the Knight of the Silver World, surprises her. Long ago, her mentor told her that Walt would find an ally. Now Rika realizes she is too late. Watching the happy couple, a sense of awkwardness and a blush comes to her face as her thoughts wander. Realizing she felt jealous of Iris filled Rika with fear. The thought made her feel small and ashamed. Calling herself foolish, she assumed Iris was just Walt's companion. The elf dreamed that one day she would fight alongside a hero as one of the top mages. For now, she simply ran behind them. After a short walk, Volt and Iris arrived at the God of War's song weapon shop, her favorite place. Iris opened the door first. The shop assistant greeted them, dressed in a cat costume with ears. Seeing Iris in costume brought surprise, and the sight of the boy next to her added even more. A hint of envy even crept in. Iris reassured her by introducing Walt as a newcomer she was helping. Walt was only interested in useful weapons. Karen looked him over from every angle and said he was attractive and had potential. Rumors were already spreading about the mysterious Walt. Iris received her sacred sword, now sworn to serve her loyally. She thanked the giver and asked to send the bill to the guild. Iris guessed that Volt might need a weapon too. Karen asked what kind he used to prefer. Volt said he used to carry a sword. Karen took out a broad blade, a new arrival this spring from the fortress of Shemus. This surprised Iris because the saleswoman had once sworn never to sell such swords. This year, Shemushi blades have become very popular because they are light, sharp, and easy to use. Volt decided to give them a try, but before he could draw his sword, it crumbled apart in his hands. Iris sighed deeply, clearly recognizing the work of the most famous forge. Karen felt uneasy and did not understand what was going on. Volt appeared unable to control his strength. Iris handed him a different sword and asked him to try again, yet this blade, crafted by Master Agni, shattered instantly. Karen almost fainted. Iris tried to calm her down because Karen could not understand how this could happen. Volt explained that his old sword was made from a special mineral called demon stone, which could not be affected by any magic. This was the exact material he needed. Iris started thinking about how they could find it. An Eastern sword, the scimitar, seemed like a good choice. Karen agreed and mentioned she had thought of it too. Volt explained that in his world, demon stone was only mined from a single Eastern mine, and it is similar to magical steel. He asked if those swords were available in the store. Karen replied with some regret that they probably were not. This kind of weapon is hard to get without special skills, and even if you find it somewhere, it costs a fortune. Orders for magical steel are rare. Volt realized it was necessary to find both the material and a skilled craftsman to forge the sword. Iris laughed, and Volt did not understand why. She told him that he was starting to think like a true adventurer. He said it was logical. Karen reminded him about the broken swords. They still needed to decide what to do with them. Volt and Iris made a sincere promise that they would definitely pay. They said it so in sync that Karen wondered if they had practiced beforehand. Confusion filled her mind as events unfolded. Iris, once interested only in weapons, now behaved like an ideal companion. Karen sighed and forgave their debt. She promised to learn more about Eastern swords and asked Walt to wait a little longer. Volt assumed that in the crowd, no one would notice them because the city was busy celebrating the day of prayers for a good harvest. However, it looked like everyone was simply enjoying themselves. Iris noticed an appealing food stand across the street, but Walt did not understand what she meant. It turned out he had never heard of crappie before. The dish was wrapped in dough and fried in a pan. Voltu liked the idea because it was easy to eat while walking. Iris remembered she did not have any money, but Walt offered his, thinking it was a fair way to pay back for help with shopping. Hearing this, the girl smiled because her father used to say the same thing. Suddenly, some strangers approached them. Luna accused Iris of running away. Noticing her dressed as a commoner, Luna told her that the whole family had been searching for her. Volt looked at the girl, quietly asking for an explanation. Iris took off her hat and apologized sadly for not telling him earlier. She admitted not wanting a high society life and dreamed of becoming a warrior. That is why she ran away from home and became who she is now. Volt frowned and said she should have told him about it earlier. Still, he supported her decision. Iris smiled and thanked him for his help. She realized that running away would not solve anything. One day, she would talk to her father. Even though there was little hope he would understand her, she was ready to leave home for good. They both sighed deeply, aware that everything was about to change. With a smile, Iris said she was counting on Walt. He smiled back. Meanwhile, on the roof of a nearby building, another girl with long hair stood quietly. Next to her stands a horned creature. She called it Dasha, the daughter of the witch from Bragon, and urged not to waste any time. Dasha raised her staff high, summoning the fire giant Surt from the mythical land of Muspelheim. A dark figure in black, burning armor emerged from the clouds. The fire warrior arrived. At the same time, Iris waved goodbye to Walt and promised they would meet again. But Luna urged them to hurry as dark, threatening clouds started to gather in the sky. Suddenly, a dark gap opened in the sky, looking like a strange portal. Volt thought it was just a staged performance, but Luna insisted it was a real danger. The hero agreed that the situation was serious. A huge monster was flying overhead. A sense of fear came over Iris as she realized she needed to protect the people. A strange portal appeared in the sky above Volt, and a figure fell out of it. Instinctively, his hands reached out and caught the girl. It was the witch Jarda. She did not notice that he was helping her. Volt remembered that magic is not allowed in the city. He set the girl down, realizing this was an emergency. Jarda was surprised as well because this was a powerful magical ritual, very similar to a summoner's calling. There was no choice but to destroy Sirta. Luna asked to stop, reminding that things had become more serious than just an adventure. The night watch was expected to arrive at any moment. Waiting for them was important to defend the capital. Volt spoke to the girls, and all three turned to him, waiting for what he would say. Their determination was appreciated, but he explained that a clear strategy was necessary to win. Volt did not feel a strong connection to the royal fortress. Many people lived here whom he owed a lot to, especially the cooks for their delicious food. The idea of a monster doing whatever it wanted here annoyed the hero. A plan started to form in his mind, and he wanted to hear what the girls thought about it. Lutessa aimed at the monster's joints, but her bullets disappeared in midair. The girl could not believe her eyes because the same trick did not work here. Volt used a different strategy. Iris drew the sacred sword and drove the blade into the demon's dark body. Instead of blood, a burning blue liquid burst out. Lutessa shouted that this creature is pure fire under its shell, and physical attacks are useless. She suggested distracting the creature so that Volt could carry out the plan. This was the best they could do. Iris agreed and signaled to take action. Lutessa felt glad to see her determination. Large white wings spread out behind Iris, using the Schwanenflügel move of the White Wing Knight. Luna clenched her fist, feeling guilty for being late. But Volt reminded her that sticking to the plan mattered more than blaming herself. The girl still did not trust her teammates when Lutessa's telepathic voice sounded in Walt's mind. The target is hooked. The dark mass was already roaring right in front of them. Iris and Luteces announced that they had brought a guest and quickly stepped aside. "Yardo, it's your turn," called Walt as the witch opened the seal. The gates of Tartarus opened wide and pulled the monster inside. The gray giant started to move, creating a scene that was both beautiful and terrifying. Volt smiled, pleased that the girls did well, and knew it was time to bring the show to an end. Suddenly, the demon broke free and called out a whole swarm of fire salamanders. Lutessa called out that she would handle the small fry and told Kururu to attack. A wave exploded behind them. Walt looked worried, but Iris emerged from the smoke, smiling, showing everything was under control. The hero let out a sigh of relief and asked not to be frightened like that again. The salamanders turned out to be weak, but every time one disappeared, a new one would appear in its place, giving the giant a chance to break through the barrier. The black-armored demon slammed its fist into the ground in front of Volt. The shockwave made the girls cover their faces. The hero stood still and nodded, thinking the blow was strong, but not stronger than the dragon's breath. Luna could hardly believe it. Walt stopped the giant flaming sword of the monster with just one hand. With a devilish grin, he muttered that this fire was nothing compared to the heat in Satan's own sauna. The demon let out a roar as Volt gripped his sword as easily as if it were a child's toy. Now it is the fire giant's turn to experience real torment. The girls could not believe what they saw. Luna thought no one could have such power. and Iris stood completely still, not even blinking. The river noticed that Vault had no stains or burnt pieces of fabric, so the hero was glad to save money on new clothes. Vault turned to the fire giant and said with a mocking tone, "Your sword is my trophy now." Seeing Rika, he asked calmly what brought her into the middle of all this chaos. The girl looked uneasy, but he gently assured her that he appreciated her support. He asked for help, and the elf girl turned pale and swallowed hard, not knowing what she could do to help. Words escaped Iris as well. Volt had not only caught Surt's blade, but had also broken swords with his bare hands before. Every action he took went beyond what the knight expected. Rika suddenly dropped to her knees, asking for forgiveness for the trouble she had caused, but Walt asked her to stop these rituals. He explained that he helped her simply because there was a danger right in front of them, and nothing more. He asked not to make anything more dramatic out of it. The confused elf tried to understand why an apology was not enough, but Volt firmly asked her to step back and stay out of danger. A heavy fist struck behind, making the wall crumble. Rika let out a squeak as the giant angrily swung the remains of his sword. Volt grabbed the girl and quickly moved away just as a fiery explosion erupted where they had been standing. A wall of fire rose behind. Jarda focused, using all her strength to hold the magic circle and keep the heat back. Volt looked at Rika, who was shaking like a child, but she said it was shame, not fear, that kept her frozen in place. The hero waved his hand, saying he didn't need an apology, but her help. Even a simple spell would be enough. The river felt unsure because her icy storm was still unstable and might not affect the ear of grain. Volt believed in the girl's talent. Even a simple fireball could turn into a real storm in her hands. Jumping up, he promised that Iris and Lutz would hold out while she prepared the spell. A smile appeared on his face as he said he would cover, and courage lit up in Rika's eyes. The heat from the salamander's lava and the giant's power pressed in, but fear gave way to determination. With an outstretched hand, Rika remembered the starry northern lights above the icy cliffs and began her invocation. Volt told everyone to step back as a big blast was about to happen. Luna and Leotisa didn't fully understand but stepped back anyway while Iris simply nodded, showing trust. The river quietly offered a prayer to the water goddess, asking her for strength. Cold air settled over the small battlefield as a silver whirlwind began to swirl around the girl's fingertips. "Ice meteor shower!" she called out, sending a stream of white light straight into the fiery heart of the giant. Knife-shaped icy comets streaked across Syrtis as the burning armor rang out and began to crack. The demon screamed in pain as the heat quickly faded, overcome by the force of the ice. Volt took advantage of the moment and rushed forward, gripping the hot shard of his sword like a club. The hero promised to protect, lifted his weapon, and struck directly at the cracked core of the fiery giant. At that moment, a seal appeared before Rika and Volt, releasing a fierce snowstorm. Lutesa and Ku barely managed to jump back as a sudden rush of wind hit them. Lutesa could not figure out where such strength came from. Everyone looked around, trying to understand where the snowstorm was coming from. It turned out to be the final clash of ice magic. The ice dust surprised everyone even more by freezing the enemies and slowing their movements. Yarda watched in amazement, realizing that this magic was as powerful as her own dark magic. And it was only basic magic. Only a few people in the hero's homeland could use high-level dark magic with such strength. Volt realized that Rika's talent might grow even stronger. At the same time, the girl felt uneasy about her own power. The hero climbed down from the roof with Rika. The giant's flames and the salamanders were now completely trapped in ice. While only watching until then, something interesting caught his attention. The enemy could summon only 13 salamanders at once. Stopping their movement is enough. There is no need to defeat them. This way, it was possible to create one big target. Volt sighed, feeling a real headache coming on. Suddenly, Iris called out to him. The hero asked her to look after Rika while he took care of another matter. Volt promised to take care of it and asked to handle the rest on his own. Iris grabbed his hand and stopped him because attacking without a plan was too risky. First, they needed to find the enemy's weaknesses. Lutesa agreed that the enemy was like a wall of fire, and a reckless attack would not help. The girls were arguing not long ago, but this time the hero chose to join them in thinking things through, ready to attack, but unsure if anything would come of it. At that moment, the giant creature opened its mouth, and all the salamanders began to glow with a bright light. A powerful explosion echoed through the area, and the hero blacked out. The feeling was just like during a battle in the world of adventures. His strength made even other heroes feel uneasy. During the battle, countless human eyes watched him from above. Laughter filled the air, sounding harsher than any devil could manage. People around believed this would be enough to defeat him. At that moment, the Demon King saw them as worthy opponents. Another part of him understood that there were no chances left. This was his defeat. At that moment, he felt ready to die. Suddenly, his eyes opened. His mind disconnected from reality to protect him, and the transformation into his final form continued. Volt was not brought back to life. He simply passed into another world. Jarda checked if the hero was awake and said she would remove the barrier. Only now did Volt remember everyone else and looked around. Volt spotted Iris and the others and saw they urgently needed healing. He guessed that the girls had shielded him with their bodies. Everything happened so quickly that he even lost consciousness. Yarda wanted to speak, but the boy reassured her not to worry. He could once again share his thoughts telepathically. The missing pieces of memory returned, and the hero remembered how to share magical power. A promise was made to fix this. Volt looked at Jarda and asked her to gather the last of her strength to help keep the balance. The hero felt relief knowing he could take action and ordered the Menos to surrender. Before he could finish speaking, the opponents started to explode one after another. Yarda could hardly believe it when the salamanders vanished instantly. Volt himself was not sure if that was really Zert. The hero stepped forward, ready to reveal the true nature of the demon lord Eshvar. It seemed to him that he had become a new person, but in reality, these were just limitations. Volt charged at the creature with his whole body, slamming it straight into the rock. Iris was sure this was its weak spot. Once the girl regained consciousness, she said that this exact stone needed to be destroyed. The shield broke into pieces and the hero stepped back, not willing to let a ghost look down on him. With a sinister smile, Volt said this was something completely new. 3 days had passed since the Sherta attack, and people were still cleaning up the city from the debris. Hortensia Lemmy Bertel looked out the window with the Reconstruction report in her hands. Even though tired, a sense of satisfaction filled her as she saw the progress. Yarda entered the room and shared that healing magic had helped Iris and her friends, so they were all safe and well. Yarda remembered that there were still a few days left to rest in Hortensia. Then, she asked about Ranzel and the others. Jarda explained that thanks to the armor, all targets are safe. Ranzel is almost fully recovered and will return to work soon. Hortensia mentioned that finding a skilled craftsman in the capital would make it possible to repair the armor. Switching the subject, Jarda still felt sorry that Iris had been in such danger. Hortensia explained that this was the only right choice and everyone survived. Yarda lowered her eyes and quietly asked for comfort. Hortensia muttered that she just wanted to become a woman. What matters more is who Walt really was. Images came to mind. A witch, a red moon, a demon king. Right now he is not the demon lord, but everyone just hopes his power does not come back completely. Sitting in the room, he rested his chin on his folded hands. Rika came in. Volt mentioned he did not see her often and asked how she was feeling. The girl thanked him and said the White Witch had helped her. Showing her award for leveling up, she had already completed 2 levels and was now working on the 3rd. Still, there were doubts about how useful she really was. Volt took out his award and admitted that he had not gained a single level after this raid. A bit of disappointment settled in, but there was nothing to be done. He then asked Rick about what was happening outside. Rika quietly pointed out that the city had calmed down a bit, even though it was still busy. With people still excited, she often needs to wear a hood to stay unnoticed. A result of her growing popularity, as Walt jokes. The girl blushed. In the past, people called her Elf Friendfire, but now they refer to her as the Icy Hand. After taking off her hood, Rika complained that her new nickname sounded like something from a tavern menu. Volt joked that it could have been worse, suggesting Elf Aspic. The girl was horrified and begged him not to spread that name. He promised to keep quiet and asked why she came. Rika remembered the reason, dropped to her knees in front of him, and began to apologize. Walt did not understand anything. She admitted that, at the request of Guildmistress Bertlin, she had watched him and reported back the day after the mushroom mission. The river almost cried but could not refuse because it was shown a reward that was hard to resist. Volt nodded understandingly. He knew what it was like for her to live with constant hunger, so it made sense that money tempted her. The girl admitted she hates lying and wants to quit spying. Volt joked that she could have made some extra money from it. The river was surprised when he said he appreciated her honesty, and that was the end of it. "No," she cried through her tears, willing to accept any punishment to make up for her mistake. Volt sighed, wondering what he could do to help her calm down. Just then the door opened and Elsie came in since it was already unlocked. She froze in place as the river seemed to hang suspended over the vistula. She looked surprised and asked what he was doing. Walt mumbled in confusion, saying that everything was wrong. The river froze, and Walt asked Elsie why she had come. She said they needed to talk about his victory over Cert. After apologizing for the misunderstanding, Rika dropped to her knees again, blaming herself for everything. Volt wondered if saving the capital should be rewarded. Elsie confirmed that a generous reward is expected. Walt grumbled that he does not like being called a hero. Elsie smiled and thought that his humility is exactly what makes him a role model for other adventurers. Volt asked to stop talking about heroes and wanted to know what his reward would be. Elsie said she was happy to share that a future had already been prepared for him. The tavern had 3 stars. Rika asked again in surprise if it really had 3 stars. Walt didn't see why this was such a big deal. The girl said that every adventurer dreams of a place like this. With so many taverns around, this one stands out for its excellent service, great food, and quality equipment. Such a rating shows a top level. Elsie mentioned that there were only 2 spots left and asked Rick if she was thinking about moving. The girl paused in thought, realizing she had never been to places like this before, even though she had read many travel guides and often dreamed of experiencing such an atmosphere. Elsie promised it would be more convenient and close to work. Rika felt uneasy because she could not afford to pay for a place like that. Elsie waved it off and said it was not a problem. Volt said there was no need for her to worry because they would earn more. Rika had already made progress in magic, and he would help her. Tears welled up in her eyes from emotion. Elsie explained that the guild would pay for both of them to stay for 3 months in advance as a way of saying thank you for saving the capital. She knew that Rika had helped in that battle too. With a gentle smile, Elsie quietly whispered that it looked like they had a new team now. Once a decision is made, it is better not to wait. A letter with the tavern's address was given to them, along with advice to be sure to stop by and take a look. The friends set off. The city streets were full of people. Looking at the city, Walt admitted he had expected it to look a bit more luxurious. Sharon looked at him and said she would now call him Volt, the hero. He made a face. She smiled and suggested the name King of Heroes instead. Volt grew even more annoyed. The girl walking next to Volt introduced herself as Rika. Sharon agreed, but at once called her the Ice Elf. Rika wished she could disappear. Sharon then introduced herself as Henrica Estella. Rika frowned and said she hated that nickname. Sharon apologized, saying it just sounded nice. But Rika got even more upset because the nickname reminded her of something from the canteen menu at Kenton. Sharon led them into the former Demon King's castle. Inside, Volt noticed a pleasant scent, while Rika eagerly looked around at every corner. The staff explained that the hall serves as a restaurant during the day and a pub at night. Their room is on the 2nd floor. Cleaning was already finished, so they could stay. Volt noticed that the bedroom was separate from the living room, making the place comfortable. Memories came back of nights spent sleeping in an office. Now he felt truly pleased. Sharon showed them where the beds were. Volt noticed there were 2 beds in the room and felt surprised because Elsie had not mentioned that they would share a room. Sharon apologized and explained that only 1 room was available at the moment. Sharon added that it was probably a mistake by the guild. Volt shrugged and agreed. It worked for him. Riku was surprised by these words. The young man said he had made up his mind to live here for good. Rika found it hard to believe she would now share a room with Walt. Sharon smiled because this was part of their agreement. Next, she mentioned that there is a bathhouse on the 1st floor and real heavenly hot springs too. The luxury left Walt feeling a bit overwhelmed. As they left, Sharon mentioned that any questions could be asked at the reception. Rika suddenly started to feel nervous. Suddenly, the young man called her over and said they would live together now. He wanted to make sure she was ready for this. Taking her hand, he calmly explained that a man and a woman need to be ready to share a home together. In the future, this could even happen before having a child. The river felt afraid. It realized this role was simply too much for it. The boy wondered why she seemed so uneasy. Rika apologized, explaining that she was not ready yet. Volt said that this was important and she should listen. In a quiet voice, she asked what would happen if she went too far. Walt replied with a joke. Fear grew inside her, but Walt reassured her that he would never defend himself against his partner. Rika quickly clarified that she never planned to cross any boundaries. Walt suggested they make a non-aggression pact, even though things were not very serious, and a simple promise would have been enough. He asked if she could promise, and Rika said she would do whatever he asked. Walt was pleased and suggested closing the auxiliary channel. Next, the guy invited her to visit the famous hot springs and joked with a smile about whether she could handle the quest called Find the Bathhouse. Rika nodded in agreement. The situation was irritating, even though it was actually what she had always dreamed of. Stepping into the hot water under the sun brought a sense of calm. Meanwhile, on the other side, Walt wrapped a towel around his shoulders. Hot springs are a classic choice, but the options here are impressive. With fewer people around, it feels more relaxed. The important thing is to stay confident and not get lost. Choosing the nearest spring, water suddenly splashed on him. A dog was sitting nearby. Volt smiled and asked what it was doing there and why it was not with Lyra. The boy leaned down to the dog and asked if her name was Kalulu. A happy bark came in response, confirming the guess as his hand gently scratched her neck. Covered in soapy bubbles, the girl ran after the dog and finally caught it. He looked surprised and asked what she was doing. The girl sighed and said she was trying to bathe Kalulula, but every time she tried, Kalulula ran away. Volt was amazed at how she appeared so suddenly, wondering if she had used teleportation. Ludicer explained she had used a special skill because holy beasts have incredible abilities. Hidden in a cloud of foam, the girl giggled, but Volt gently tapped her head with a basin and told her to go back to the bath. She then asked if he would go swimming. The young man brushed her off, saying what mattered more was how much longer she planned to act foolishly, since this was still a public place even without other people around. Ludicer shrugged and said she was heading to a secret hot spring known as Hana no Yu, a place familiar to only a few people. Pointing to the door, she explained that the secret pool was hidden right behind it. The boy was surprised because he saw only one entrance, which looked different from other bathhouses. Ludicer smiled, thinking that the spring was probably also meant for group bathing. Curious, Volt asked if it was a mixed bath. The girl nodded and invited him, saying only she and Kalulu would be there. She reassured him by saying that the Order of the Night Silver Wolf had reserved the spring for today, so there was nothing to feel awkward about. The boy could only wonder how anyone could not feel embarrassed here. Volt carefully asked if Iris and the others would let him join. The girl laughed, already imagining Ranzel's funny reaction, and hinted that she would have even more reasons for jokes. The young man realized there was a trick. He understood he was invited for more than just relaxation. Muttering that he only wanted to enjoy the springs, he asked if she was ready to take responsibility. Liudesser calmly replied that she would just make sure to wash up thoroughly. Volt wondered if everything would be okay, but when stepping inside, was stunned by what he saw. Right away, he was scolded because the Order of the Night Silver Wolf had rented the spring, so he should have been embarrassed. Volt became angry that Ludus said nothing and had to introduce himself. Breathing in the rich scent of women's perfume, he announced that he was here only to enjoy the bath. Wooden basins were thrown at the boy because only women were supposed to be there. Volt asked Ludus to stop Ranzel and explain to everyone that she was the one who invited him. The girls quickly realized this was another of Ludus's jokes. The young man let out a relieved breath when things calmed down, and Iris with her friends allowed him to stay in the water. With a laugh, Ludus asked if the boy liked washing himself. Volt muttered that he did not want to be compared to a dog, since in the royal family servants always took care of baths, so he was not very skilled at doing it himself. Suddenly, with a sly smile, Ludus asked if she could wash his face too, and even the whole body. Her reason for the offer was simple. He had helped them greatly in the recent battle. Volt replied that he had already received a reward for defeating the giant, but the elf just shrugged. Her people always show their thanks honestly and with no sense of obligation. The boy was still unsure, but Liudessa had already made up her mind. She would wash his body. She started making the foam and suggested he close his eyes if he felt uncomfortable. Then, with a smile, said it was time to begin and would wash his body just as it was. Volt only asked not to be bitten on the ears. While the girl was carefully rubbing it, the boy suddenly felt something and called her over with surprise. Asked if she was always this hairy. The girl raised her eyebrows in surprise. Laughing, she said she was not hairy at all. Still, Volt insisted her skin felt like light stubble, just like in the movies. At that moment, a dog jumped on him. Volt became confused, trying to figure out why the dog was there. Ludessa felt embarrassed when she realized it had been his dog Callaloo the whole time. The boy could not tell if he felt relieved or disappointed. Right then, another girl showed up and started yelling at him. She accused him of secretly watching Iris's body, which is not allowed. Her voice kept getting louder. Once the body became clearly visible, Volt smiled and pointed out that this did not match her usual nighttime presence. Hearing those words, she poured hot water on him and muttered that it was Ludus who brought them there. Volt looked at the girls and joked that they could be called the Hellish World Conquest Group. The girl asked if he had already decided on a name for his team. Volt said yes, but sounded unsure. Eyes dropped to the floor, suggesting he could not say a word, and everyone else silently agreed. Ludus spoke up, saying that if a joke was needed, it should be a better one. The young man covered his face with his hand and quietly said that society never accepts the ideas of geniuses right away. Turning to Iris, he asked for her thoughts. She replied that with his sense of humor, it was better not to overthink things. With confidence, she suggested that everyone should think together about what to name their group. Later on, Volt told Rick about this unusual conversation. He explained to the girl that he had decided to get advice from some adventurous women he met by chance at the hot springs. And no, he was not relaxing in the water at that time. The boy mentioned that the girls suggested the team name Volt and wanted to hear her opinion. Rika said the name was actually pretty good, so Volt decided to keep it. Suddenly, the girl fell to the ground. Volt rushed over and asked what had happened. Rika shouted that something had grabbed her leg, and she could already hear the voice of death. At that moment, the guy felt that the name was missing a certain magical touch. Others did not like the idea, even though he was personally drawn to the name Dark Hegemony Lee. The fallen girl screamed that this must be the judgment of the god of death. Volt shouted at her to calm down and promised to help. Suddenly, the boy realized it was a ghost, but he did not tell Rika. She noticed he was worried and asked who had grabbed her. In the previous section, Rick was grabbed by a ghost around his leg. He managed to break free, and when he looked at his attacker, he was surprised to see a frail young girl. Volt noticed that, on closer look, she seemed to be only a few years old. The frightened girl suddenly lifted her head and said in a firm voice that she was not a child, but a famous adventurer. Her sharp tone startled Riku, so Volt gently asked if she was all right. The girl started trembling and said she needed a doctor if she was injured. With a shaky voice, she asked if there was a couch nearby where she could lie down. Volt realized she was really unwell and lifted her in his arms. Meanwhile, the stranger whispered that she was about to die of hunger. Volt sighed and said that in her condition she would not make it to the capital, and he would feel guilty about it. The girl weakly disagreed, telling him not to worry so much, but he hugged her and accidentally pressed on her stomach. She mentioned that it hurt a little. Without delay, he brought her to the city branch of the Adventurers Guild, where Cantina was. The stranger looked truly happy when served delicious food. Rika let her eat as much as she wanted, and the girl thanked her sincerely for the meal. Watching her eat as if food was something new, Volt asked if she had any money at all. The girl sighed, realizing she had no money. Volt decided to pay for her this time. As she finished her meal, she introduced herself as Marabuka Stella. Her birthplace was the port city of Verona. Volt gave her the playful nickname Marabuka. This brought instant frustration as the odd nickname reminded her of the past. Finished her meal, wiped her mouth, and let out a sigh of relief. The young man walked over and asked why she had fallen right there. Marabu hesitated before answering. During a delivery quest, an unexpected encounter with a monster caused the task to fail. Volt smiled and asked if the task was really failed and whether the monster took the goods. Marabu explained that she climbed the tree too quickly and was suddenly overwhelmed by hunger. She worried that the monster might hear her growling stomach. There was very little food left, and she was unsure what to do next. Without much hesitation, she ate the goods themselves, which were top-quality fruits. Smiling, she admitted what she had done. Volt realized she was both bold and stubborn, exactly the kind of woman he could never stand. Elsie ran up to them and let out a sigh of relief when she saw that Marabu was safe. She thanked Volt for his help. He still was unsure why he had acted the way he did. Suddenly, someone called out to them and said with surprise that they did not expect to see this girl because she had disappeared for an entire week. Else walked over to Volt, thanked him for handling the situation, and said she would pay the bill that Marabuka had piled up. The young man noted that she had a kind heart. Suddenly, Marabuka began shouting angrily because she was upset that Rika saw the honorable job of a craftsman as just a step toward becoming a mage. Marabuka asked Rika about her own profession, and Rika replied that she was a dark mage. From the very beginning, Marabuka had been an artist. Jumping up from her seat, she started pounding on the table. Rika was upset by this rudeness and tried to make her stop. Volt grabbed Marabuka by the shoulders and tried to calm her down. Then a small piece of cake was gently placed in her mouth to keep her quiet. Tasting the sweetness, the girl quickly calmed down. Volt was impressed by how well this worked. The young man joked about whether he had brought down the anger of the Almighty on himself. The girl replied seriously that in her family the craft is passed down through generations. They take pride in their work because they have helped many adventurers, even though people have undervalued them for centuries. Volt remembered the day he started at the adventurer's school, when everyone had to choose between becoming a knight student or a craftsman. Both options seemed incredibly boring to him. He did not even think they deserved to be mentioned in an encyclopedia. Marabuka placed her hand on her heart and solemnly said that she dreams of becoming the strongest artist in the world. Volt realized with surprise that he had just unintentionally overlooked the value of craftsmen. Meanwhile, the girl was already announcing her intention to change how craftsmen are treated in the capital. She dreams of a time when they will no longer be disrespected. The whole history of her family, the Stelvio family, is closely connected with Verona, often called the Pearl of the Elysian Sea. At that moment, a staff member approached and asked to avoid disturbing other guests with loud conversations. After he left, Marabuka shouted even louder at him, insisting that even a craftsman deserves respect. Volt calmly pointed out that it was not the craftsmen who were at fault, but her own behavior that created a bad impression. The girl became even angrier and said that Volt spoke too harshly, which was why she lost her temper. Volt smiled and asked if she might be upset with herself. Marabuka poked him with her finger and said she was angry with him. Then she added that with this attitude, he would not have any luck with girls. Volt calmly replied that he did not care, because she was just a child anyway. Elsa walked over to Marabuka and suggested staying quiet, or the waitress might come over and say something. Then she turned to Volt and apologized for not being able to help with the move. Volt said it was fine and that he and Rika managed on their own. Marabuka asked in surprise what move they were talking about. Elsie explained that Volt was the one who helped defeat the fire giant, and that was why they upgraded their base as a reward. Marabuka became angry because she did not believe someone like him could do such a thing. Volt only muttered that she was being rude. Suddenly the girl stopped and started thinking. Maybe this is what balance means. Volt asked her what she meant. Marabuka explained that one attacks with physical strength, the other uses magic, and both rely on force. A craftsman would be the perfect way to balance this team. Marabuka said their team could be even stronger if they added someone as valuable as her. But Volt apologized and explained that he was not looking to expand the team and was happy with just 2 people. He suggested she try joining someone else instead. The girl clenched her fists in anger. Suddenly the approach changed and tears appeared. She admitted that she had never managed to join any team and had always been left out. Her crying grew even louder. Volt asked if her stomach was hurting again. Through her tears, the girl explained that because of her job, she does not get good quests since she lacks a team. If this continues, she might lose her title as an adventurer. With tears in her eyes, she added that she had always dreamed of going to the capital, but now it seemed she might have to return to a quiet fishing village like Verona. The boy replied with sarcasm, reminding her that she once called Verona the Pearl of the Sea. He also wondered who she planned to share her so-called criminal life with. Suddenly, the river spoke. Without lifting her head, she said that everything was true. The capital is too harsh on newcomers. This city really is unforgiving, and she understands Marabuka well. If she had not met Volt, her life would have already ended. Volt looked at Rika and shared some advice. Her habit of accidentally blowing things up had not gone away. Because of this, most people would probably blame Marabu for any trouble. Rika said she does not think Marabuka is a troublemaker and suggested they become friends. This made Volta a bit upset. He agreed to let her join the team, but only out of respect for Rika's feelings. Happiness lit up her face. Rika gratefully thanked the young man, hugged Marabuka, and Marabuka said with excitement that now they would have something real. Volt looked at the two happy girls with a hint of reproach. A serious look appeared on his face as a sense of regret about this decision settled in. Volt told Rita to go back to the Demon King's fortress and finally give Marabuka a bath, because leaving her as she was could cause trouble. Rika said she would talk to Shiren about it. Later, Volt told the whole story directly to Shiren. He admitted that he actually did not want to include Marabuka in the team. However, Rika rarely insists on something this much. Even though it is risky, he would feel guilty if he refused, so he decided to make an exception. Volt noticed that Shiren was acting strangely and asked if something was wrong. The girl admitted that lately, one question has been bothering her. It is about the person who was responsible for Marabuka. She said she does not want to take care of her anymore. This surprised Volt, as he was not sure what she meant. Shireen talked about Marabuka's past, explaining that she often struggled with relationships and faced her own challenges as a guardian. This showed that nobody is perfect. Volt smiled, showing that entering public life always brings misunderstandings and awkward moments. The world does not have absolute justice or evil. People have different opinions, so there is no single explanation for anything. Volt then asked if it was true that Marabuka could lose her title as an adventurer. Shiren confirmed that it had happened before. The boy clarified that when he returned, her status might already be gone. Yelsi noticed that sometimes Volt seems surprisingly mature and mentioned that he once led an entire country. With a bright tone in her voice, she added that from now on, she would be the one looking after Marabuka. As long as the girl is under her protection, she will keep her status as an adventurer. So Volt thanked her for making that choice. Elsie smiled and said that Rika and Marabuka are alike, like troublesome kids, which means Volt is always surrounded by energetic children. Then she suddenly started laughing. She gave a simple answer to the boy, saying it was because he was the most restless among them. Volt felt annoyed and asked for an explanation, but Elsie just shrugged and said the fact remained, and that was why she wanted to help. They shook hands, and Volt thanked her sincerely. Then Elsie reminded Marabuka that she needed to pay for the fruit she had eaten. Later, in the tavern at the Demon King's castle, Marabuka asked with surprise if Volt and Rika really shared the same room. The guy explained that at first they wanted separate rooms, but a mistake happened and now they share one. He wondered if it really mattered that much. Marabuka joked about possibly getting in the way of their time together, then happily announced she understood everything, even though she clearly misunderstood. The river blushed and explained that nothing special was happening between her and Volt, while Marabuka boldly asked what, in her opinion, a boy and a girl do when they are alone together. Volt explained that Rika was right. They are just a team who share a room because of the situation, and in some ways, it feels like a family. Rika also said that Marabuka could feel at home with them. The boy announced that tomorrow they would restart the paused quest. It would be the first task for the trio, a great chance to try out Marabuka's fighting style and give Rika some practice with her magic. Morning starts with shopping for equipment for Marabuka. Excitement fills the air as the discovery of a great store is shared. The store sits at the far end of the shopping district, so the location is not ideal, but both the prices and the selection are excellent. The store is called Silver Pig, and it is a second-hand shop that she truly recommends. Volt noticed a sign that said, "Super low prices, we make any wish come true." Rika pointed out that the place looked quite run down. The shopkeeper greeted the visitors warmly and immediately recognized Marabuka, saying it had been a while since they last met. The worker hugged the girl and said it felt like torture not seeing her for a whole week. Marabuka got annoyed and threatened to go somewhere else, the shop. The saleswoman just squinted and said, "Where else will you find such great prices?" Then she noticed Volt and Rika and said she understood what was going on. With a smile, she guessed that Marabuka had hired the adventurer through a personal connection, then added that money cannot buy true friendship. Marabuka just snorted and got ready to argue. Marabuka said these people are her true friends. Besides, her older brother has already made a name for himself, and become well known in the neighborhood. The shop assistant quickly changed her expression, carefully studying Volt and blinking her eyes with interest. Calling out to people passing by, she invited them in, saying they had the real live Volt. Meanwhile, the boy just wondered why he had to stand there acting as a living sign. The girl admitted she never believed he really existed and never thought he would come into their second-hand shop. Then she suggested that Marabuka should quit her dangerous adventures and work as a shop assistant instead. Marabuka refused. The shop assistant just shrugged, feeling indifferent but still respecting the girl for her determination and commitment to her dream. Volt mentioned liking the shop, but added that Mizette's behavior gets on his nerves. Rika disagreed, saying they are good friends, while Marabuka muttered that these friendships are just a few casual conversations. Volt noticed that Mizetta clearly thinks of her as a friend. Rika added that the shop assistant almost worships Marabuka, and Marabuka, getting annoyed, walked faster. It was time to stop talking and get the equipment. The boy reminded her that their goal was the Savoyam marshes, and asked if Rika had ever been there. She heard the name for the first time. The scroll explained the task clearly. Collect 10 pearls from crystal lizards. Pearls come from reptilists, dangerous creatures that have taken over Savoyam and are multiplying very quickly. Once a favorite spot for travelers, the swamp is now filled with these dangerous creatures. Volt calculated that to collect 10 pearls, they would have to defeat about 200 reptilists. Rika was shaken by the scale of this task. The quest also needs to be finished by 6 p.m. The chance of finding one is at most 5%. Simple math shows that out of 20 defeated reptilians, only 1 pearl appears. With a bit of luck and more than 10 pearls collected, the reward increases, but time is short. The return trip will take another 3 hours, so the schedule is very tight. Success brings 2 benefits at once. The order gets completed and the budget increases. Volt smiled, realizing there would actually be 3 benefits, because the team would also get to test their teamwork and give the girls a good training session. So with one shot, they aim at 3 targets at once. When Rika arrived at Savoyama, she quietly said that the swamp really seemed endless. A dreadful place, definitely not a resort, Volt remarked gloomily. The ground felt springy, almost like an eggshell, but it could hold their weight. So walking outside the mud was safer. Rika carefully walked along the narrow bridge, while Marabuka skipped ahead like a little goat. Volt simply sighed heavily, already sensing trouble. Marabuka explained that her family has a natural skill called unstoppable walker, which is why craftsmen are so valued. Rika noticed with interest that this ability lets them carry heavy bags without slowing down. Marabuka felt happy to be understood, while Rika watched her with genuine admiration, dreaming of moving as gracefully one day. The girl encouraged herself to trust herself more. The clearing looked peaceful, but Volta felt uneasy. Volta called Rika over and asked her to listen closely. The boy explained that 4-element magic depends a lot on the environment, just as he was taught back home. Rika agreed that it is important to choose a place that matches the element and admitted she lacks experience. In the swamp, fire becomes weaker and water grows stronger, she answered when asked how magic works here. The girl was about to use water, but Volt suggested using a weak fire instead. This would lower the chance of her usual uncontrollable explosions. First, it was important to practice holding back her strength. Rika agreed with the plan and said training starts right now. The plan is simple. Volt lures out the beasts and sends a signal. Rika attacks with a fireball, and Marabuka covers them for support. Marabuka asked if a tinker could take the place of a white mage. Volt explained that it is not about replacement, but about working together to complement each other. Crystal lizards surfaced with a splash. Volt gave the order to get ready. Noticing that Marabuka was acting on her own, he called out to her, but the girl had already picked up the homemade bomb, determined to prove what a tinker could do. Lighting the fuse, she threw the explosive. The explosion was so strong that nothing was left of the reptilians, not even their scales. "Here is proof that a skilled tinker can be a real fighter," she said with pride. Volt joked that it was a good way to get blown away by the wind, while Rika complained that the explosion was too powerful. Running a hand through messy hair, the hero smiled, now truly understanding the potential of the tinkerer and recognizing some mistakes made along the way. Volt wondered why, despite her skill, Marabuka had not advanced beyond the first level in 2 years. Marabuka blushed and looked uncomfortable, unsure of what to say. Finally admitted that there was barely enough money to get by, couldn't even save up for bombs, and that was the whole so-called progress. She said with irritation that her skill was set to the highest level and she could throw anything. She mentioned that even ordinary things can be used as weapons, and if necessary, she can also handle legendary artifacts. Volt appreciated her determination. A firm warning made it clear that restraint was necessary, or the river's magic would not work. The girls apologized almost at the same time. At that moment, a group of reptilians emerged from the bushes. The loud explosion had caught their attention. Volt told Rita to prepare a spell, and her eyes focused as her expression grew more serious. Marabuka received instructions to choose the right tools for each situation. Use bombs if necessary, but do not overdo it. Excitement filled the girl as she promised to throw in everything she had. Volt smiled, feeling for the first time that they truly looked like a real team. "Attack!" he ordered, and the trio charged at the monsters. Marabuka was new in town, but already known for being resourceful. Right now, surviving mattered more than building a reputation. Volt lured the creatures after him as they chased him in a swarm across the muddy plain. "Rico, now!" he called out. Without hesitation, the girl triggered Fireball. A blazing shell crashed into the crowd of reptilists, sending up a column of steam and ash. Volt shouted that it was a perfect direct hit, while Marabuka watched the shockwave with her mouth open in surprise. Volt noticed that Rika's fire magic had become stronger since their time in the Aeon Forest, even with all the dampness of the swamp. The girl blushed when he praised her. She admitted feeling more confident after training with ferrite Zelphids. Volt nodded, acknowledging that their efforts paid off. Marabuka wondered how the beginner's magic had become so powerful, and whether the local conditions really did not affect it. At first, finding out that Rika chose an almost legendary hero as her partner seemed odd. But now the reason was starting to make sense to her. Marabuka noticed that Volt and Rika are much stronger than the adventurers she usually sees. Meanwhile, Volt suggested that Rika try the attack again, and she gladly agreed. Marabuka realized that staying with them could make her much stronger. She clenched her fist and pushed away all doubts. In her mind, she promised herself to become stronger, full of determination and resolve. The girl reminded herself that her friendly fire could be dangerous, so it was safer to keep some distance to avoid accidentally harming her allies. She realized that such power is a real danger, and any carelessness could come at a high price. So Marabuka chose to act as a true team member and give her best in the support role, even when Volt keeps moving non-stop without breaking a sweat. With a dissatisfied mumble about never getting tired, she announced it was time to show her talent and started using her elixir-throwing technique. The bottle whooshed past Volt's shoulder, missing by just a centimeter, and hit the monster. The girl froze, hardly believing what she saw. "You healed the enemy," Volt said, explaining that he dodged on purpose because the potion's splash was dangerous. Feeling anxious, Marabuka explained that this is advanced technology. A blow to the skull triggers instant regeneration. Volt wondered if people dislike tinkers because hitting someone on the head with a bottle does not seem very safe. The girl admitted that this was a fair point. Volt went on with his explanation. He explained that the body is covered by a magical shield, so physical and magical attacks have little effect. Marabuka was amazed and said that this makes him almost invulnerable. Volt objected, saying that during the fight with Cerberus he did lose consciousness for a moment, and that was when his memories returned. Marabuka did not understand everything, but listened attentively. The boy added that healing spells and splashes of potion have no effect on him, and that he needs to drink it himself. This made Marabuka feel disappointed. Still, Volt pointed out that the ability is interesting, though it is complicated. Volt asked Rick, but she apologized as soon as she imagined what it would feel like to be hit on the head with a bottle. Marabuka tried to explain that it saves time compared to opening a bottle, and in a critical situation, every second counts. She admitted that regular drinking makes the treatment more effective. Volt concluded that stopping the potion is only an option in extreme situations, and the girl nodded in relief. Marabuka objected, saying that without tossing things, her tinker identity would fall apart. Volt replied that their profession was not so fragile that it would break because of one rule. Tears appeared in the girl's eyes as the sound of a broken bottle meant losing her favorite way to relax. Memories of her first time smashing a bottle at the adventurer's school came back with excitement, almost making her faint with joy. But Volt and Rika did not share her enthusiasm. Tears streamed down Marabuka's face as she clung to Volt, begging to stay with the group she had just found. The guy said plainly that he was not interested in her fetishes, but after a pause, he agreed to let her use throws only in critical situations. The girl felt relieved. Only extreme situations, remember? Volt specified. Marabuka nodded eagerly, happy to have at least some permission. 2 hours later, the trio had defeated all the reptilists. Volt announced the end of the fight, and Rika praised the team for their excellent work. Marabuka counted with satisfaction that about 300 monsters had been defeated. Volt gave the order to collect pearls while there was still time. The river reminded him that he had been running non-stop to train her, so now it was time for him to rest. She would help Marabuka with the trophies. The girl checked the time. The trip to the capital would take 2 hours, and getting ready would need another hour. They would still make the deadline. Volt agreed to do everything without being lazy, but also without panicking. If necessary, he would carry everything himself quickly, even though he dislikes running long distances. Rika felt pleased with her decision to rent a pocket watch. For timed quests, it turned out to be a very useful tool. Volt agreed, mentioning that, in this world, a pocket watch costs as much as an estate, but helps avoid many problems. Looking around, Volt figured it might be a good time to take a break while the girls took care of the trophies. Jumping up from the rock, it was time to check if everything was all right with Ricky and Marabuka. Calling their names, he walked deeper into the swamp when suddenly a loud rumble sounded, as if the sky had fallen. A terrifying monster appeared in front of the girls. Rika cried out in fear, and Marabuka whispered that they had found real danger. The monster looks like a giant reptilian, and probably only an adventurer of the highest rank could handle it. The guild most likely didn't even know it existed. Volt shot upward and struck the creature's skull with magic, making the swamp tremble from the force of the blast. A cloud of poisonous smoke burst from the monster's mouth. Volt told the girls to hold their breath. Once they reached a safe distance, they saw the toxic fog start to clear. Marabuka made a joke, saying it smelled like a skunk bomb. The girls admitted they had breathed in some fumes but said they felt okay, though Volt noticed they looked a bit pale. Marabuka did not have her bag, and it was clear she had left it behind to save time while escaping. Rika stood up for her friend, and this clever move really saved their lives. Volt gave a compliment, saying good job, and Marabuka blushed shyly at the direct praise. With the fog gone, Volt suggested they get back to collecting pearls right away and then head to the capital. Suddenly, Marabuka's legs gave out. Volt managed to catch her, while Rika leaned against a tree, feeling sick and weak. Concern spread across his face as he asked what was wrong. Marabuka groaned and said her whole body felt like it was burning. She guessed that the toxic vapor was a mix of a paralyzing and deadly poison, and sweat formed on her forehead. The antidotes were left in the bag that had to be abandoned. The girl pressed her lips together in guilt. "I am just a clumsy craftswoman," she whispered. And Volt realized that time was short, and Rika was also getting weak. When he asked what else could be done, Marabuka lifted her skirt and revealed flasks strapped to her thigh. Volt protested, saying this was no time for jokes, but the girl insisted with a serious tone that these were spare elixirs. Lifting the edge of the fabric, Volt found a few small bottles, his last supply. But the dose is only enough for one person. Volt turns pale as he realizes he has to choose who to save. Marabuka did not hesitate and said, "Everything for Ritza, please," as her trembling hand touched his chin. The girl admitted that ever since she arrived in the capital, she had only caused trouble. Today was the first time she actually helped. Memories of failures, rejected teams, and feeling unwanted filled her mind until she met Riku and Volt. "Being with you made me feel happy." Tears rolled down as thoughts filled my mind like a burning fire. Grateful for even a short time together, she felt pain in every nerve. When Rika drinks the potion, she will survive. Marabuka accepted her own weakness, but still wanted to be helpful at least once. The pain in her body was overwhelming, but knowing her friend would survive gave her the strength to hold on a little longer. Volt knew the decision was difficult, but there was no time to waste because every second could mean life or death for Rick. Marabuka wanted to keep exploring with this team, because everything felt bigger and more exciting with them. Volt quickly told her to drink the potion right away, catching the girl off guard. He explained that Rika had already taken her dose, so there was no danger to her, and he showed the half-empty bottles. Marabuka disagreed, saying the river was supposed to drink everything, but Volt reminded her that it would hurt their friend to learn about her own sacrifice. Tears streamed down her face as she insisted that even with a 2-hour run to the capital, he could not have saved them both. Volt pinched her cheek and told her to stop whining. Showing determination and holding on to life, you do not give up easily, so stop acting as if everything is over, he said firmly. When warned to drink the potion if she resisted, she blushed and quickly swallowed the elixir straight from his lips. Upset by losing her first kiss, she covered her face with her hands. Volt gently patted her head and promised to carry them both. With a smile, he promised not to leave and told me to hold on tight. Holding the girls close to his chest, Volt bit his lip and took off like a flash, moving with a speed beyond human imagination. Through her haze, Marabuka tried to understand what was happening as the earth and sky blended into a single line. Within a few minutes, they were already in hospital beds in the city hospital. Rika was asleep, while Marabuka blinked and slowly woke up from a deep sleep. In a faint voice, she asked if they had really been saved. From the door, Volt's voice came as he entered with a bandage on his shoulder. Awake now, he smiled and asked how you were feeling. Marabuka tried to move, but her body felt extremely heavy. Volt reassured her that the poison was still working, but the antidote had already been given. Surprised, she glanced out the open window and quietly said she must have slept through an entire day. Volt laughed, realizing that only 3 hours had passed since the fight. The girl could not believe it because the trip usually took 2 hours. Volt said he made it in just 3 minutes. Marabuka exclaimed that this was impossible for a human. Volt smiled and replied, "No one said I am human. I am the king of demons." Surprise showed on her face, but he just shrugged it off, saying the important thing was that everyone was alive. In 3 days, the poison would wear off and they could keep moving. Marabuka agreed with relief, but suddenly remembered the task and sat up quickly, nearly pulling out the IV. "Pearls!" she shouted. Volt thought the toxin's effects had come back, but the girl was just mumbling about an unfinished quest. Volt admitted that he could have finished everything himself from a technical point of view, but there was something holding him back. Marabuka became quiet and whispered that the real pearls are not in the backpack but hidden in the special clothing of the craftsman. Volt turned red with surprise and asked if these small hiding places for tiny parts really existed. Lifting the blanket, he tried to carefully reach for the trophies, but the girl shouted that he was not allowed to go under the clothes of an innocent girl. Volt reminded her that she could not move because of the paralysis and offered to call a nurse. The girl gasped when she learned that all the staff were busy dealing with food poisoning. At that moment, Elsie walked into the room holding a bouquet and caught them in a rather awkward position. Marabuka, in tears, asked Elsie to take the prize away from the barbarian. Elsie became upset, and Volt told Marabuka to watch her words. In the end, Elsie stepped in, handed the pearls over to the guild, wrapped up the task smoothly, and the team received their well-earned reward. Volt smiled and said he would pay for everything today to celebrate the successful mission. From now on, everyone should work even harder. The girls sat down at the table. Rika said thank you, and Marabuka suggested they finally start eating. While eating, Volt remembered what Elsie had said. Adventurers do not always meet the end they expect. Today was a clear example of that. Marabuka added that something truly remarkable happened that time. The monsters were officially recognized as a new species of giant reptiles. Volt confirmed that the treats were a reward for finding and destroying new creatures. Rika was pleased and said she was ready for the next task. Marabuka added that soon their names would be known throughout the capital. Volt asked if everyone liked the name of their group, Team Ishudo. He repeated the question. The girls looked at each other. Smiling, Rika said she liked the name and repeated it out loud. Marabuka agreed, adding that this name was the best way to attract newcomers with potential. Volt announced that from now on, the name could be considered official. Turning to Shera, he asked her to bring a bottle of red wine, and she immediately went to get it. Other adventurers approached their table. One asked if the group already had a name. Another suggested they have a drink to celebrate it. Volt wanted to know who they were. Rika and Marabuku were also surrounded. Rika explained that this was the Ishudo team. One guest pointed out that the simpler the name, the better, because it will still feel right years later. Another recalled how in youth there was a tendency to pick dramatic names like underground ruler, or conquerors of the world. At that moment, a group of knights entered the tavern. One of them asked everyone to be quiet and wanted to know if the summoner Merida was there. It turned out she was a level 10 adventurer. Someone in the crowd recognized the group as the Imperial Guard. A shy girl wearing glasses stood up and said it was her. She did not look like a typical hero. She asked what was needed. The knight explained that it was about the incident with the giant Cerberus. Merida tried to change the subject, but someone interrupted her. One of the knights came forward and asked directly if she was the one who summoned the monster and brought it into the capital. Rika turned to look back. Merida felt anxious and insisted these were only rumors. She said she would never do such a thing. Still, the knight explained that there were witnesses. Even with a small chance, checking is their duty. There are also statements from eyewitnesses. The day before the attack, she was seen at a tavern in the Red Quarter, where she reportedly said she wanted to burn down the capital. Hearing this, Rika and Marabuka grew cold with fear. The bartender, the housekeeper, and the guests confirmed that these words had indeed been spoken. Volt fell into deep thought. The knight told Merida to explain herself. She moved into a corner and quietly apologized, saying she had been drunk and was talking nonsense. She admitted that she was going through a difficult breakup at the time. The bartender turned pale and the knight looked at her with suspicion. Merida pleaded for understanding, explaining that she would need at least another 15 years to learn how to summon a creature of that level. She shouted that the giant Cerberus is a very powerful monster. The knight thought she might be hiding her true abilities. Merida wanted to speak up, but no one listened. She was ordered to be taken to the guard headquarters. She tried to break free and kept saying there was a mistake, but they had already caught her. Someone in the crowd argued that even a high-level adventurer could not handle such a creature. Rika replied that while she did not know Merida, she did not believe she was guilty. Volt had no connection to Merida, but admitted the knights acted too harshly. He thought her only fault was saying careless words while drunk. The situation grew tense. Volt stood up. Marabuka asked what he planned to do. The young man walked up to the group of knights and spoke with confidence. "Wait a moment. I heard everything you said, but you might be taking this too far." The tavern grew loud. Volt firmly stated that an accusation based only on a drunken joke was weak evidence. Going after the wrong person would only help the real culprit. He added that it was a waste of effort and tax money. The commander became irritated and asked who he was. Volt calmly replied that he was just an adventurer. Gerta apologized, explaining that she was simply sitting nearby. The commander objected, saying that a young man should not criticize imperial knights. He assumed that Volt must have a high rank. Volt smiled and replied that his rank was 0. The commander stared. Volt handed over his ID to show everything was official. The knight shouted that he could not lie because adventurers always start at level 1. Volt shrugged and said he was different. "If you want to know more, ask the girl. You stepped in because this new recruit at level 0 is the one who defeated the giant with his bare hands. His name is Ishudo." Everyone turned to look at him. Someone called out, "Is that the skinny guy Schwelten?" Someone asked if he really defeated the fire giant Sailor. Then, making a joke, he suggested it was probably just a made-up story. The girl stayed quiet. Volt scratched his head and said, "The weaker the dog, the louder it barks." The knights looked at him nervously. The commander shouted that he saw nothing, but then the others started to notice something strange, almost as if everyone turned to Volt, who had become the focus of attention. One knight said, "This is our lord." Everything around had changed. They saw him, but at the same time, they did not truly see him. Before them stood the image of the person they respected most. The illusion worked. The knights saw the current Emperor Ledger. The commander bowed and said, "We await your orders, Your Majesty." Volt realized these people were completely loyal. Volt called this a true example of the honor shown by Imperial knights. Raising his hand, he gave a firm order to return to the barracks. They bowed and, hopping like rabbits, hurried to follow the order. The girl knight looked surprised and asked what had happened. Volt shrugged and said it was hypnosis and that it would wear off soon. She asked why she did not give in. Volt smiled and said it was because she was the only one who never laughed at him. The girl looked at him and realized the newcomer was indeed Ishudo. She admitted they had acted in haste, so they would leave this time. A wise decision, said Volt. He suggested she catch up with her companions. She paused and asked what made him so special. She left. The silence in the tavern turned into whispers as people began to bow their heads respectfully to Volt. The thought crossed his mind that the power of the demon lord had worked again. An adventurer excitedly said that it was impressive. Another girl asked what kind of power he used. Someone else wanted to know if he was really Ishudo. Volt noticed some of the adventurers were strong and experienced, but they stayed silent. He realized the Imperial Knights held a lot of power. Then someone quietly asked for forgiveness. Merida stood there, a bit embarrassed as she thanked him. She did not fully understand what had happened, but knew he had saved her. Volt replied that he had only caused a little commotion. Merida disagreed and said he really had saved her. She added that while drunk, she could not control herself. Volt reassured her by saying that miracles last 9 days. He said that the attacks on her reputation would soon stop. She nodded and thanked him. Bowing slightly, she apologized. Memories took Merida back to the past. After that unhappy love, her life fell apart. Memories of him as her first love in 20 years came back to her. Happiness made her heart beat faster. She said, "You could have told me earlier that you have a fjord." The thought crossed her mind that he was the one who saved her today. Without him, she would not have been able to face the big challenge waiting for her the next day. At that moment, someone interrupted her. A girl with a doll-like appearance stood in front of her. Her name was Dasha. She explained that she had brought this child, who was called Smoke. Merida thought it was a sheep, but it looked too round and seemed to have an eye. Asmodeus gave a polite bow and mentioned that this was their first meeting. Merida, feeling confused, gasped, not understanding what he meant. Dasha apologized for scaring her, while the familiar jumped off her shoulder and quickly came over to the girl. Merida asked what they wanted, feeling an odd sense of calm and regretting having turned into an empty alley. Suddenly, a magical barrier flashed before their eyes. Dasha smiled and said, "Did you notice? It's too late now. Everything will happen quickly." At her word, Asmodeus grew to several meters tall and stood before the summoner like a judge. With its jaws open, the creature declared that Merida belonged to it, and the girl realized no help would come. Meanwhile, Volt finished his roast at the tavern, praising the food. Rika mentioned that even a simple sandwich deserves 3 stars, while Marabuka promised to keep practicing until completely exhausted. A bit embarrassed, she explained that the item master from the story is a craftsman who became a legendary mentor for knights. Marabuka said with excitement that such a master can match even the god of war and travels without limits. The room buzzed with anticipation as everyone waited to see the famous Rozvais from the Silver Wolf squad. Admiring looks followed the elite unit as people whispered, wishing them good luck. Someone mentioned that Iris is an outstanding beauty, and even the scouts are impressed by her skills. The river suddenly reacted, saying that Iris and everyone else were here. Marabuka quietly mentioned that these are top-level adventurers, and the girl's eyes lit up. The squad looked so impressive in their armor, even a dragon would have a hard time fighting them off. The rider waved down at Volt, and he nodded politely back. Marabuka let out a surprised sound, realizing that Rozvais herself had just greeted her. People in the crowd were already whispering about Iris's boy. Elsie walked over to the group and greeted everyone in the morning. Volt admitted getting used to adventures, though sometimes he missed his old comfort. Elsie joked that this was how it should be. He asked about the purpose of the parade since there were top fighters everywhere wearing heavy, monster-like armor. Rika apologized, getting confused with the names. Marabuka mentioned the Templars, and Elsie suggested explaining everything in detail. She explained that witches create unique underground dungeons called Graios, each with its own layout and tricky traps. The main feature is that the halls change their layout every 9 days. This makes the Graios unpredictable. Only 3 levels have been explored so far, and Volt immediately wanted to go there, but Elsie firmly said no. Marabuka pointed to a familiar mage and called her beautiful. Rika recognized the summoner. The girl explained that without glasses and with a new hairstyle, Merida was hard to recognize. The crowd whispered about her perfect look. The river looked completely different from yesterday, and Volt also noticed the change. Looking closer, he saw it was the same face, but the aura had changed completely. The girls admired the mage's outfit. Merida gently stroked Asmodeus on her shoulder, looked up and spoke with a serious tone. "Finally, we have met, my only demon lord." Volt just blinked in surprise. Volt realized that Merida was talking to him through her mind. Yesterday, that furry creature was definitely not on her shoulder. The memory of her calling him the Lord of Demons came back, bringing a sense of unease in his chest. Graios is a magical maze filled with mysteries, built as a prison full of traps by a witch. Harris looked back and realized they should already be much further inside, but time was passing quickly. 9 days had passed, and the group had only reached the 4th layer, with just 2 hours left until midnight. The earlier maps became useless after the changes, but setting a new record still felt rewarding. Ludus grumbled that after changing the plan, their advantage would disappear like mist. Luna disagreed, saying that 3 guards had been defeated, the trophies were worth the effort, and fighting alongside Iris was priceless. Her face lit up with happiness while Ludus repeated that the dungeon was not worth the trouble. The argument turned to mocking comments about an empty chest and a flat chest, and Iris shivered, remembering the 9 hard days she spent in the stone belly of the labyrinth. Despite the difficulties, they learned a lot by working together to solve puzzles and defeat the guards of the layers. Realizing that all traces of their work would disappear after the Reconstruction brought a feeling of sadness. With a serious tone, Iris asked Helda if it was even possible to survive staying inside during the Reconstruction. The witch replied that no one has ever returned, which is why the dungeon was truly called the Man-Eater. Iris realized that the number 4 brings bad luck to witches, so the real ending is probably still ahead. The thought sparked determination in the girl's eyes. Helda smiled, recognizing the familiar fighting spirit in Iris. She suggested that the creator might be one of 3 legendary witches, but did not want to mention any names. Iris waved her hand, thinking this was just like the cautious Helda. The only worry was if the devil fox from the guild would find out. The restrictions in the dungeon are quite frustrating. No kind of teleportation works, and even special crystals lose their power. Gelda complained that the creator of the labyrinth had a cruel sense of humor and banned exactly the type of magic that could save lives. Iris listened carefully and told everyone to stay alert until the very end. Luna reported back quickly. "The rearguard is intact, no one is left behind." In a moment, the group reached the hall with columns and a round platform, where the passage between layers was always located. The platform came to life as Gelda warned everyone that the guard was on the way. A rocky dragon with spines on its crest stepped out of the portal. A true Bergvik, the tyrant basilisk. Ludus let out a heavy sigh. The creature had returned, but this time they were ready to fight back. Iris remembered how they almost died last time, but spoke with determination, and said this time the result would be different. Swords clanged and magic circles lit up as the squad took their battle positions. Bergvik roared, the columns shook, and dust rose underfoot as the battle for the new position began. With less than 2 hours left before the rebuild, the adventurers' eyes showed unwavering confidence in their success. The girl told the group to stay together and make sure no one was left behind as the timer kept ticking. Iris confidently promised that everyone would return to the capital unharmed, and the adventurers, gathering their courage, charged at the dragon from all sides. At the other end of the tavern, Nira slammed her fists on the table to show her frustration that there was not a single craftsman in the proud reconnaissance unit. Rika asked everyone to calm down and reminded them that the next quest goes to the Lucas Plateau, half a day's journey away, with a night spent under the open sky. It's a great chance to enjoy the trip. The girl handed Mira a stack of recommendations from the guild and asked her to prepare carefully for the journey. Meanwhile, Volt noticed that Iris's team should have returned by now and glanced at Rika, who was quietly drinking her tea and seemed lost in thought. Rick was asked if he knew anything about the summoner Merida. The girl admitted she did not know her personally, but she had heard many stories. The river remembered that Merida is known as a reliable solo summoner who never joins permanent teams. However, unrequited love and rumors about challenging a giant follow her, making life in the capital far from easy. Nira winked and said that Volt was brave when he saved Merida, so there must be something more between them. Volt dismissed the idea, saying that reducing everything to love was childish, then reminded Nira about getting up early. Annoyed, the girl made a sound like an angry kitten. In the labyrinth, Iris felt relieved that no one had been lost. Ludus agreed, knowing there were many wounded, but this only showed their strength. After drinking the potion, Luna remembered Volt and thought that if he were here, they could have defeated the dragon with only minor injuries. She muttered that she didn't need that pathetic guy, but Iris just smiled, feeling inspired by Volt's unique style. Thinking about him gave her strength and became a good catalyst. This time she felt stronger than ever before. The battle lasted an hour. The dragon was finally defeated, but there was little strength left, and the clock kept ticking toward the deadline. Iris looked over the team and thought they could even reach the 5th layer with this group, but there just isn't enough time. As soon as she said this, the hatch to the next level unlocked. Ludus joked that just knowing the passage existed was enough and it was time to go back. Leadership shifted to Luna because her voice stood out the most. She promised to carry out Iris's order perfectly. Luna stated they did not clear the dungeon, but they reached the unknown 4th layer and confirmed the existence of a 5th. With this, the mission is complete and the group can be proud of what they achieved in 9 days. She raised her sword and the group cheered as the journey officially ended. Now everyone had to leave the maze through the terraform gems, starting with the wounded to save time. After most people left, Luna and Ludus were nearly alone. Ludus felt uneasy for some reason while looking through the list of participants. After checking again, it turned out one person was missing, even though 96 had been counted. Luna could hardly believe what she was hearing, but the numbers were clear. Someone was missing between the levels. Gelda challenged the group to play hide and seek and called out loudly to anyone who might be hiding. From the shadows, a dark figure appeared, with long hair and a dress shimmering in the darkness while moving closer to the torchlight. The stranger with the staff smiled, while a strange creature with an eye patch sat on her shoulder, round like a doll but also a bit unsettling. Iris quickly recognized Merida Ebro, the notorious summoner, and only gave a slight grimace when their eyes met. Ludessa looked at the stranger with curiosity, wondering if this was the same troublemaker who was expelled at the start of the journey. Merida, smiling slyly, explained that this was just a small punishment for talking too much, since these people acted as if they had known her forever. With a frown, Gerda pointed out that setting friends on fire was going too far and that a simple verbal warning would have been enough. A girl behind told Merida to step aside as the tension grew. Admitting her carelessness, she realized she was supposed to change her identity, and that was why she did not mention knowing Gerdu. Lifting her staff, she apologized. A strange smile caught Iris's attention. Something about this girl felt off, as if something inside her was not quite right. Right before their eyes, the stranger suddenly changed, looking fragile like a doll. An odd feeling of worry settled over Iris, while Luna and Ludus immediately tensed and got ready to fight. Even Ku prepared to defend, but Yerda stayed calm. The girl introduced herself as Dasha, daughter of the great witch Briggan, and her only student. Smiling, she greeted the other girls. The Iris team stood in front of Dasha, the daughter of the legendary witch, who held a staff and stared straight into their souls. This did not surprise Gerdu at all, as if she had already suspected something. Iris remembered that Briggan was the one who owned the Book of Prophecies, which Gerda always carried. Dasha introduced the creature sitting on her shoulder and said, "This is Asmodeus." She gently stroked him and asked if a good moment would come today. The little animal replied with annoyance, saying it did not like being called a baby. Luna and Liudessa could not believe that this fluffy creature could talk. The girl introduced herself as the daughter of Briggan, so Jared decided to see if she was telling the truth. Dasha confidently confirmed that she was. The news unsettled Gerdu because the well-known witch had no family or children, yet she made this statement. Dasha smiled a little, knowing the world is vast and even the wisest person cannot know everything. Even a witch with years of experience does not have all the answers. A gentle hint suggested that even without much knowledge, Drerda did not live for entertainment. Drerda replied that a first-level summoner with a staff like that could call up almost any creature. There was no doubt in her mind. Dasha was the one who had called upon the fire giant. Dasha pressed her lips together and firmly said she would not let anyone insult her mother. But Gerda was only stating the facts. In her mind, Dasha decided that this girl lacked manners. Out loud, she asked why Gerda was looking for her. It turned out the giant had been released in the capital, and the role of Merida was part of the plan. Dasha laughed and said that if Gerda were a real witch, she should have thought ahead. Since this was not done, Dasha decided to offer some help. The real reason for the trip was not research, but something else. Iris now felt completely confused. The girl could not allow anyone to conquer this maze. In other words, her mother was the one who built the underground. Dasha said clearly that this creation belongs to the witch brigand. She even felt offended that the girls only made it to the 4th layer after so much effort. Ludus took it as an insult, but Luna stopped her. Dasha suggested that Yerda could have used all her strength to help the others escape, and then gone deeper herself. But Yerda replied that this would not have helped Iris. Dasha laughed. Such a talented witch became a nanny. For her, this feels like a failure. Zerda started to get nervous because they had already lost half an hour because of Dasha. Gerda warned that staying in the maze during Reconstruction could be dangerous. Still, Dasha reassured her and said Asmodeus would protect her. Gerda waved her hand dismissively. Dasha thanked her for the concern but asked not to worry. Actually, she still had many questions to ask but decided to keep them to herself. Just as she was getting ready to leave, Iris suddenly stopped her. The news surprised even Yerda. Iris wanted to know if the real Merida was still alive and felt scared to hear the answer. Dasha quickly reassured her that she had not killed Merida, gathered enough data to perfectly copy her appearance. With some luck, someone might find the real Merida one day. The meaning behind Dasha's words was unclear to Liudessa, while Luna felt shocked, knowing that if things went wrong, the girl could lose her life. Iris saw the situation as terrible, but Dasha just laughed and asked them not to be so sensitive. Although the conversation was pleasant, Iris thought the best option would be to kill Dasha right away. But Dasha was already saying goodbye and getting ready to leave. Iris wondered if letting her go was the right choice, so she asked Gerda for advice. Gerda suggested waiting a bit and focusing on getting out first. Meanwhile, Dasha turned around and realized she had made a mistake. She finished the spell but forgot to say the last part. At that moment, a giant creature with 3 heads appeared from the air, staring at them with a terrifying gaze. As Dasha said goodbye, she mentioned that she had now completed everything she had planned. Cerberus, with 3 heads and dozens of eyes, growled and showed his fangs. Ludus swore since there was no time to fight. Luna looked back at her and urged her to use the stone, but Ludus panicked because the artifact had crumbled to dust. Yerda could not believe what she heard. The memory of how dangerous Cerberus was had faded. It had been 100 years since the last encounter. Cerberus could block any attempt to escape and was almost immune to magic or changes in status. This made him a real curse. The dungeon's restrictions blocked all forms of teleportation, both magical and with objects. Time was running out before the maze changed again. Iris refused to give up. Determined to fight until the end, she desperately imagined Walt beside her, as if he were really there. Meanwhile, the hero stayed at the camp on the Lucas Hills, drawn by the smell of food coming from the fire. Mira joked cheerfully that there was no meat left for him and raised her hands as if to say her ancestors were responsible. Volt was amazed at how quickly she finished her food. Just a moment ago, there had been plenty of meat. Mira replied that you either eat everything or you get eaten. Volt thought she should slow down a little when eating. Rika handed him a plate of hot food and noticed that something had caught his attention. He thanked her and mentioned that even though it was not travel season, the place was very crowded. The night was surprisingly loud, and the camp felt more like a festival. The hero did not expect so many people. Rika realized that all of this was organized to celebrate the return of the scouting team, the same group that had explored Graios. Rika thought they were lucky to arrive at the right time. It seemed that Graios was really close. The elves also heard that the entrance to him was nearby. It looked like the scouts would spend the night here. Walt realized why so many people had gathered. Mira decided they would wait here for Iris and the others. She suspected Walt thought about Iris more often than he admitted. A gentle smile appeared on his face, showing how much he cared for her. Memories came back to him of the times in the kingdom of Lahar when they looked after each other. There were many reasons for his interest in Iris, but before he could think more about it, loud shouting broke out nearby as someone alerted others to a problem. People rushed for help, shouting about a monster attack. Volt looked around in confusion, unsure of what was happening. One of the lizards asked to contact the capital and call for the overseer. His companion dropped to his knees and begged for water. People gathered around, wanting to help, but he kept repeating his request for water. Volt recognized them as the same boys he had taught in the city. The lizard noticed someone coming closer and flinched. When Walt appeared, the lizard turned pale and quickly jumped back in fear. The lizard asked what the hero was doing there. Walt felt surprised that the lizard recognized him, since he had never mentioned his name. The lizard explained that everyone in the capital knows Volt, the one who helped the Silver Wolves defeat Surtur. Volt asked not to be called a hero, and the lizard apologized. The lizard then said that Iris and the others stayed in the Graios dungeon. Volt was shocked and asked him to say it again. It turned out that the third reconnaissance group went with Iris and the Silver Wolves squad, but none of them survived. It was already late at night, which meant the dungeon was starting to refresh. Entering the maze during Reconstruction is extremely dangerous. Rescue is almost impossible, and even finding someone would be very difficult. Time passed, and there were no options. So they decided to report everything. Walt understood the situation and started thinking carefully. At that moment, a boy brought the communication crystal, their only hope. The crystal was new, something Volt had never seen before. To activate it, a small amount of mana needed to flow into it. As soon as he did this, a hologram of a girl from the capital's Adventurers Guild appeared. Volt realized how useful this device was for long-distance communication. Seeing Rika and Mira with Volt, Elsie looked surprised. The girls greeted each other happily, but the lizard interrupted and told Miss Elsie that she was the one he meant. Yashchir cried out in alarm, saying that the Silver Wolf squad was still inside Graios and the maze had already started shifting. There was no time left and clear orders were needed right away. Elsie stood in stunned silence. Before she could say a word, the head of the guild appeared behind her. The fox, holding a glass and sounding a bit tipsy, greeted everyone in a relaxed way. Volt frowned when he saw her flushed cheeks, unsure if this woman understood how serious things were. The fox asked with a sly smile who he thought she was. She stated that this kind of inspiration is just part of her routine. Volt replied that now is not the time to be proud of her tolerance for alcohol and demanded a decision. A reminder came. The twin lizards are ready to charge anywhere, even into danger. They just need a clear plan. With a sigh, the fox admitted the situation felt unusual, even by Gerda's standards. It reminded her a lot of her own adventures. As a member of the city guild, she announced an order saying the scouts must return by dawn. The lizard protested, saying this meant abandoning the Silver Wolves, which felt wrong. Quietly, the fox told him to calm down and think clearly. She explained that the men had just returned from a grueling 7-day raid, exhausted and out of strength. Launching another mission would only increase the number of casualties. Suddenly, Volt said he would go alone and bring Iris and the others back. The fox checked if he was sure. Volt nodded. A few mugs of ale had not weakened his strength or drained his mana. Everyone knew he often broke the usual rules. Only unusual skills could save the knights, and that was nearly impossible. So relying on his strength was their only hope. The head of the guild announced an urgent quest to rescue the Silver Wolf squad. Volt immediately agreed to take part. The request was clear. Food, water, potions, a crystal lantern, and, if possible, a spare teleportation stone. Everyone hurried to their tents to gather supplies. The fox touched the crystal and whispered that Iris feels like a sister. Luna may be cold, but she is enchanting. Ludus is amusingly naive. And as for Ku would enjoy being petted all day long. She promised that no matter how difficult the job of being a leader became, she would never abandon these kids. Volt smiled and wondered why she had not said this from the very beginning. The fox handed him the quest crystal, marking the official start of his rescue mission. Volt, Rika, and Mira set off right away. Elsie wished them good luck and asked them to stay safe. Fox encouraged them, reminding the group that Iris's fate depended on them. When the connection dropped, Elsie looked at the fox with concern and asked if it was safe to send a newcomer with Volt. Rika was only level 3 and Mira was still at level 1. Graios requires a top-level team. Entering in a rush is risky. The fox recognized her worry, but remembered how the girls' eyes lit up when they were told to stay. True friends never abandon their team. Rika saw herself as part of the Volta group and stayed determined. Mira believed the Tinker would help them. Others might see them as weak, but together they were a team. Volt looked at the two girls like a proud older brother, and this moved Fox deeply. "Everything is fine," she laughed. "Volt is surrounded by wonderful companions." Elsie agreed and was happy to work with this group. The fox rubbed her temples, thinking she needed to come up with a special reward for these reckless ones. She asked Elsie to prepare a report and send out a warning. Elsie nodded and went to carry out the task. Behind her, the fox called out that she believed in the Volt team. Meanwhile, the three of them were already near the entrance to the labyrinth. Up ahead, a crowd was gathering. The same steadfast and cautious groups still arguing about what to do. The road was blocked because people argued. Some shouted that they should wait for sunrise, while others insisted on attacking right away. Volt realized they had arrived in the middle of the chaos. Now was the moment to take action, or else Iris and her friends would be trapped forever. Suddenly, Ku appeared right in front of Volt. The fluffy wolf leaped into his arms like a loyal dog. The hero was truly happy to see him. One of the lizards asked with surprise why Ku was alone here. Another adventurer explained that the wolf appeared right after they left. Volt then remembered something important. Ku had a unique ability to teleport, but unfortunately it only worked on himself. Remembering this made the wolf whimper sadly. Volt realized with regret that Yerda could probably teleport the whole group, but something in this dungeon was blocking all spatial magic. The fox suggested that Iris and her team might have had a teleportation stone with them. The lizard agreed and was sure they did. But since they have not come back yet, it means the stone did not work for some reason, and this only showed how dangerous the situation was. Volt agreed with the conclusions, realizing the situation was clearer now, even though there was no time left to think it over. The structure of the maze was unknown, so searching without a plan would not work. But with Ku by their side, a new possibility appeared because the wolf could pick up the scent of Ludus or Iris. Yashchir said he hoped they could return alive and gave all responsibility for the squad's fate to Volt. Wearing his shining armor, the lizard put all his last hope in the hero he believed had defeated Surtur. This deep trust took Volt by surprise. Without wasting a second, the hero rushed into the dungeon with one goal in mind, to return alive with the whole team. As soon as they stepped inside, a furious dragon appeared. Mira screamed in fear when its face came right up to hers. The dragon fell dead, almost landing at her feet. The shock nearly overwhelmed her, but she kept her composure. The situation was dangerous, and the girls struggled to make sense of the nightmare they were in. Mira wished she had not come here because everything around seemed dangerous. At the same time, she noticed that Rika appeared comfortable in this environment. Looking at the pale elf, it became clear that she had been wrong. Rika was barely holding on, and admitted she had almost turned into a dark mage. One more outburst would have been enough to destroy everything around her. Mira quickly warned against using a fireball in the narrow corridor, explaining that everyone could suffocate even without the flames. Rika felt a chill of fear, realizing that the place really did feel like a sealed cave. Mira remembered that the dust and debris around would make earth magic even stronger. Normally, a mage would use the ground, but for Ricky, power had slipped out of control before. The same thing happened back in the Savoyum swamp, and she remembered it clearly. Now Rika promised to use only air or water magic. Mira felt relieved since this was a wise decision. While the group discussed their tactics, Volt took down another monster blocking their path. Seeing the pile of bodies, the girls realized that their only option was to follow the hero. Each creature fell with a single strike from him. The battleground looked more like a mass grave than an arena. A sense of anxiety grew in Rika, knowing that if they stood where those dragons did, they would not survive. Stretching out, the hero remarked that this kind of exercise helped clear not just his muscles, but also his mind after drinking. He then asked how the girls were feeling. They assured everyone they were fine, and Volt nodded in approval. Mira noticed that even the hero's breathing stayed calm. Suddenly, Ku tensed up, growled, and dashed forward. Volt told the girls to follow Ku, possibly because he sensed Ludus's scent. He warned that it would not be easy from here, but he hoped they could catch up. Mira and Rika exchanged glances. Mira said not to underestimate the way she walks, and Rika promised she would follow him even to the very end. A smile appeared on the hero's face. This sounded good. He moved forward. Soon, Ku led them to a solid wall. The river suggested going around it, but there was no time left. Mira advised blowing up the passage with a grenade, but Volt asked to save it for an emergency. Nira looked surprised, not understanding what he planned. Volt then asked Ku to move back. Next, he raised his hand and touched the wall. With no effort at all, Volt broke through the wall, leaving a huge gap in the stone. Ku and the girls stood still, amazed. The hero smiled and said there is nothing difficult about it. Mira thought to herself that using fists is better than using explosives because it is less likely to bring down the tunnel. The team kept following Ku. Sometimes Volt broke through walls. Other times he cut through the floor or even the ceiling, changing the shape of the maze as they moved. The river realized the strategy. In the world of Earth, the fight should use wind and water for control with minimal destruction. A bolt of lightning shot out, glancing off the hero's back. The startled girl apologized, but Volt just waved it off and said a little friendly fire never hurts. Just keep your aim steady. After wiping the sweat from his forehead, he admitted it was really hot, and the right hall was still nowhere in sight. Mira carried half the load without complaint. Volt praised her for her amazing endurance, and Rika winked to show her approval, calling her a true item master in action. You have everything you need to become a master of objects, the hero said. Mira blushed, surprised by such a compliment. Volt encouraged holding on to the dream and promised to help if needed. The girl muttered quietly that she never asked for help, while he was already breaking down another wall. Beyond the broken section appeared a deep, endless drop, where the usual laws of physics seemed to stop working. Q carefully sniffed the air, then confidently jumped into the darkness. Volt ordered to follow him. Mira felt a shiver but decided that since she had come this far, she had no choice but to take the leap. Whispering, "If you are going to eat poison, finish the whole bowl," she ran after the wolf. Deeper inside the labyrinth, the three-headed Cerberus blocked the path of Iris's group. Gerda used gravity magic to hold up the ceiling so the stones would not collapse on them. Perestroika began, and the eraser was already digging tunnels through the system, making it impossible to stop the process of renewal. A plan was necessary. Gerda wanted Ku to act as a messenger, but first, the guard dog needed to be removed. Luna, filled with fighting spirit, transformed and launched a head-on attack. Luna struck down 2 heads, but the third one spat fire. Feeling confident, Luna said she had done it, not noticing the hellish flames closing in. The flames blinded the girl. Iris rushed to help her, but Ludus stopped her and said, "Let me handle this." Gerda reminded everyone that Cerberus can only be killed by destroying all 3 heads at the same time. Otherwise, he will come back to life. Even a pierced heart will not stop him. The third paw was already swinging toward Iris. In the next moment, everything could change. The girl felt a shiver run through her because her friends were counting on her, and she could not let herself fail. Iris lost her strength and staggered. At that moment, the ground exploded and someone caught her in their arms. Volt said, "Sorry for being late." Dodging Cerberus's strike, he quickly took in the situation and said, "You picked quite a cheerful place." Ludus jumped with joy, while Gerda, still surprised, just asked how he managed to get in after the reconstruction. He trusted Mira because only her bombs could explode in perfect sync. Fear took Mira's breath away. It was only the first level of the tinker, but the hero encouraged her and said this was her moment. He told her to throw all the grenades straight into its jaws. The girl feared the creature might snap its mouth shut. Iris reassured Mira, promising to support her and help distract. Ludus will help her aim, and Rika will protect with a shield of wind. Mira took a deep breath and said she was ready. Her hand stopped shaking. Volt activated inspiration and raised his hand, ready to take action. The hero distracted Cerberus, stepped into the attack, and then moved aside, leaving all 3 mouths exposed. Mira rushed forward, spun a string of 6 bombs, and at the signal threw them all at once into each of the 3 openings. Iris used a gust of wind to help the projectiles go deeper, while Rika made a curtain of water to hold back the flames. A loud explosion shook the underground. All 3 heads flew off at once and the dog's body dropped to the ground. The beetles made a noise and moved back as the terra stones began to glow again. Volt picked up Luna, who was unconscious, and told everyone to get ready to teleport. Gerda activated the stone and the portal lit up. Iris said, "Home." One by one, they disappeared into the light as the labyrinth closed behind them. Dawn greeted them with chilly air at the surface. Volt smiled and said, "Mission accomplished." Iris, still shaking, said thank you. Mira sank to her knees, amazed she had managed to do it. A tear rolled down Ludus's cheek as she hugged Ku. Rika sat on a rock with relief, feeling the rush of adrenaline slowly fade away. Volt looked at his friends and said, "Team Ishudo, it is time to head home. A hot breakfast and a well-earned reward are waiting for us." Laughter broke out among the girls despite their exhaustion, as even plain bread felt like a treat after what they had been through. Behind them, the formidable Graios rumbled quietly, signaling that another reconstruction had begun without their involvement. A new day and new adventures await them, but for now, what matters most is that they are all together and safe. Mira softly whispered, "Volt, thank you." Placing his hand on her shoulder, he said, "Today you became a true master." Far down the passage, a distant rumble could still be heard, but as the sun rose, the world once again felt endless. Ku lifted his head and sniffed the morning air, ready for new scents and new paths ahead. Iris looked at the group and quietly said, "This is what real adventure looks like." The river laughed while wiping away tears of joy, and Ludus was already thinking about what tricks to try next time. Wolt wiped the blood from his sleeve and took his first deep breath of the night. The fresh air burned in his lungs but brought him back to life. They achieved what seemed impossible, but everyone understood that bigger challenges lay ahead and no one was willing to give up. Volt raised his hand, and all five of them, together with Ku, touched hands as a sign of their promise to face any storm side by side. Volt rolled up his sleeves and got ready for the final battle as a real guardian of the underworld stood before him. Without hesitation, he struck Cerberus on the central head, making the beast jump back. The hero smiled and asked to be led to the underworld. While the injured head was healing, the other two heads breathed fire at the same time. Volt quickly dodged and loudly introduced himself as the demon lord Ishvalt. Meanwhile, Mira connected 3 bombs together. Even one bomb would be powerful, but together they would be much stronger. Memories came back to her of spending 2 years working at a factory, and now her heart was pounding with anxiety. Curled up for a moment, then suddenly felt a surge of confidence. It's done. Iris came over to apologize for being in a hurry since this was their first meeting. Mira introduced herself as the new tinker in Volt's team. Mira said with excitement that she knew Iris from Legends and could hardly believe they were talking in person. Iris smiled and said to call her just Iris. Then she asked what was happening with the bomb. Mira showed the connection. Iris noticed uncertainty in her eyes and gently asked about it. Mira admitted that Volt's plan seemed too risky because it required hitting all the mouths at once. Iris reassured her, saying that she and Volt would distract 2 sides at the same time. These words motivated Tinkerbell, and now she focused only on making her throw as accurate as possible. Iris gave a wink and said, "We're counting on you." Mira took a deep breath and prepared herself. An explosion sounded behind them as Volt landed in front of the girls. The right head's jaw is broken, making the target less mobile. Time is not on our side. He explained that he had damaged the animal's bones and organs, which slowed down its healing. Mira gasped in shock and said that he was crazy, but she admitted that aiming was now easier. A spark of confidence appeared in her eyes, and Iris noticed it. "Mira, take the center. I'll cover the left," Iris ordered. Volt nodded in agreement. Tinkerka caught her breath, activated the master's roar, and gave the signal. Volt charged forward while Iris lifted into the air using the Schweinflügel. Rika and Ludus hoped for success as a sword, magic, and a bundle of bombs sped toward the monster. A loud explosion shook everything, making it feel like heads were about to burst apart. Mira jumped up with joy, saying it worked. Rika and Ludus clapped their hands. The joy quickly faded as a sharp smell reached Iris. Something was wrong. As the smoke cleared, the heads began to grow back. Mira sank to her knees and whispered, "I failed to notice." Volt placed his hand on her shoulder and said it was his mistake because he missed some details and told her not to cry. He realized the solution was not to break the heads, but to turn off the machine that powered them. If the Chervor is perfectly mechanical, a physical explosion will not work. Tinker put her hands on her head and said sorry, but Volt just smiled and said that they had not lost yet. Yerda is exhausted. Iris is at her limit and the space is breaking down. Only moments remain. The hero clenches their fists, ready to find a new solution. He turns to the team and says, "All right, together we'll find another way to deal with this dog once and for all." Volt looked around and saw the dragon spear sticking out of the floor, shining like a beacon. This was the legendary dragon lance. A thought flashed through his mind. If the blast could be aimed inside Cerberus, it might work. Iris warned that even well-trained Imperial Knights cannot lift this relic because it is too heavy. The hero looked at Mira's thin arms and saw that she could not do it alone. Still, he remembered how the Tinkerer once boasted she could throw any object, even a legendary weapon. Volt turned to the confused girl and reminded her that she once said she could drop anything if she wanted. Quietly, he asked if she could manage it. Tears still shimmered in Mira's eyes, but she nodded and said she could. For objects, weight does not matter because the world catapult ability ignores mass. Gripping the shaft, she took a breath and lifted the spear above her head, as if it were just a wooden stick. Iris found it hard to believe, but there was no time to be amazed. Volt smiled and said this was their last chance, and if they made it back, the first drink would be on him. Mira agreed with a wink. The hero looked at his friends and said, "It's all or nothing." Mira launched the spear with amazing speed as Volt sensed her ability, giving the weapon incredible acceleration. Ludus and Rika helped the throw with a gust of wind, shouting words of encouragement. Both of them, along with Iris, said together, "The end." The lance, Volt, and Iris's arrow hit the target at the same moment. Far away in another part of the dungeon, Dasha, the witch's daughter, began to open the chest her mother had left behind. Inside was a plain doll with no hint of any magic. Surprised, she hugged the toy, thinking it must be a gift. Asmodeus asked what would happen to the dungeon next. Dasha decided the place should stay a trap, just as her mother intended. Now, though, she wants to learn more about the demon lord of terror mentioned in the Book of Prophecies. The spear entered the central mouth and exploded from within. 3 heads, joined at the base, split apart at the same moment. The blast wave threw Volta back, but he managed to shield Iris in time. In a second, the beast collapsed and its regeneration did not start again. The Guardian fell for good. Meanwhile, a crowd gathered above, waiting for news from Graios and calling Volta a hero. The word had always made the hero uncomfortable, but today acceptance was necessary. People cried with happiness when they saw Iris and the Silver Wolf Knights alive. Rumors spread quickly, and even in the busiest square of the kingdom, people talked about the achievements of the Isudo team. Iris handed Volt an envelope sealed by Director Wardelaine. Apparently, the fox wanted to express gratitude. Concern grew for Luna's condition, yet Iris reassured that the potions had already helped and she was feeling better. Volt opened the envelope and smiled when he saw a certificate for a date inside. Looking a bit lost, he glanced up at Iris. Blushing slightly, she explained that the principal decided this kind of reward suited a hero. Iris quickly stepped back, explaining she was just following orders and had only delivered the voucher. Volt awkwardly scratched the back of his head as he watched the girl walk away. After everything they had been through, maybe going on a date would be a good idea. At the bottom of the voucher, the signature read, Iris Froleyslieven, Knights of the Silver Wolf. After hearing this, Yerda shrugged, realizing that their so-called romantic approach was really the only option in those circumstances. At first, Volt felt annoyed about using guild funds for a meeting, but soon realized there was no point in arguing. To be honest, the hero felt happy because girls like her did not exist in his world. Still, he wondered if meeting by the city clock was a good idea, especially since both of them were leaving the Demon Lord's castle. Mira laughed because Volt's thoughts were easy to see on his face. Ludus expected something amazing to happen, while Rika still did not understand why they were hiding. Ludus winked and said this place was meant for dates, and the mood here was very different from the throne room. Volotov thought he heard a whisper and looked around, but saw only passers-by carrying baskets. He shrugged off his nerves and said, "Feeling nervous isn't like me." At the same time, Ludus covered Ritza's mouth and quietly whispered that they almost got caught. Their disguise nearly failed. Mira was glad that Ludus was with them, and Ludus said she would not miss a show like this. Rika agreed because after the dungeon everyone had leveled up, so there was a reason to celebrate. Mira proudly showed her badge, now a level 3 tinker, while Rika had reached level 3 mage. Ludus greeted her, saying that with one more level, Rika would be an average adventurer. Rika felt surprised at how much she had grown. Mira admitted that her body ached after the battle, but she managed to get out of bed just in time for the show. Volt was still at 0, and this made Ludus think about how strange the leveling system was. Suddenly, Mira pointed to Iris, who appeared in an elegant dress, and Ludus waved everyone to come closer. Iris apologized for being late. As soon as Volt saw her, he felt like Cupid's arrow hit his heart, and he blushed. Rika whispered in admiration that the dress was amazing, and it really suited her. Ludus quietly noted that Iris always chose her style well, unlike herself. Iris walked over to the confused Volt and looked at his flushed face with concern. "I'm fine, just got here," he muttered, looking away. Mira quietly told the girls, "See how shy he is." Sharing a bath did not unsettle the hero as much as the modest smile from Iris. Ludus teased Riku, saying, "Yes, elegant ladies are his weakness." Volt suggested going for a walk, and Iris agreed. He did not have a plan and decided to improvise. Noticing her hesitation, Volt asked what was wrong. It turned out that Ludus said couples are supposed to hold hands on a date. Iris looked away and quietly said, "If you don't mind." Volt gave a wink and held out his hand. The hero's hand felt surprisingly warm in her fingers. Suddenly, Volt remembered he was 30. Iris was only 15. Then he recalled that guild records listed him as 18. He felt relieved. Deciding to figure it out later, he moved forward and led the girl with him. Hidden in the bushes, 3 spies watched their romantic moment. The scene was truly priceless. They visited a few shops and had lunch near the stalls, just like people do on an ordinary date. After a while, the walk led them into a park where couples strolled nearby. Volt felt a bit awkward. The day went by following the usual steps of a first date. After eating the pancakes, Iris smiled and said she had missed that taste. Volt agreed it was lucky they had found such a cozy little diner. As the sun set, both of them, still a little shy, realized that their official date had turned out better than they expected. Iris asked with interest about his pancake, and Volt replied with a smile that he chose juicy sausage and melted cheese for the filling, which sounded very tasty. Then he suggested they decide where to go next, telling her to choose any direction she liked. Volt guessed she probably wanted to visit the weapons or armor shop, and he was right. Iris admitted with some embarrassment that she did want to go there, even though she was trying to follow Ludus's advice to act like an ordinary girl. Curious, Volt wanted to know what story the clever elf had told her this time. Iris explained that today she is not a knight, but a lady, so looking at swords in shops would be improper. Volt sighed deeply, thinking that this girl is quite a handful. He smiled and said he was fine with other people's hobbies and promised not to judge her interest in steel and blades. Iris smiled and thanked him, happy to know that Volt would join her. The other details no longer mattered. They headed to the shop called Victorious Song of the War God. The owner, Karen, quickly noticed they looked like a couple and, with a wink, called them lovers, making Iris blush even more. Karen clicked her tongue with excitement, saying how quickly the relationship was moving, while Iris looked away and pretended not to understand, her cheeks burning red. Kramarka remembered that the holy sword Mistelstein needed some additional sharpening. Iris assured everyone they would not leave until Luna fully recovered and signed the delivery receipt. Karen noticed that everyone in town was talking about Volt, saying a hero without a weapon saved the team. Iris just smiled, enjoying the praise. At this moment, Karen remembered their old conversation about the Eastern Yatagan and the single-edged monokir. Volt had already forgotten that he once asked about it. After her investigation, it became clear that one group of dwarf craftsmen, true masters of the forge, worked best with moonsteel. According to Karen, dwarf-like creatures are a type of fairy, so it makes sense that Volt had never heard of them before. Any item that responds to its owner's mana is considered a magical weapon. The Eastern Yatagan is also on this list, so the hero's heart started beating faster. When a skilled craftsman is found, a personal magic sword can be created. There is a problem. Today the native village of the dwarves is in danger. Karen sighed and thought about going there. Many young people leave the forges and choose quick jobs in the city, so there are very few real blacksmiths left. That is the whole story. The shopkeeper modestly flicked her tail, and happiness shone in her eyes. Her tail began to wag on its own as Iris gave a gentle smile, knowing Karen feels happy when she can help. After leaving the store, Iris realized she had not told Volt everything about the witch Dasha. Disguised as Merida, Dasha made her way into the labyrinth and summoned Cerberus. Every step followed a carefully prepared plan. The real Merida was found weak and partially unable to remember, but alive, and that brought some relief. Volt let out a sigh of relief knowing that at least no one was hurt. The guards and the guild are still looking for Dasha, but Iris doubts they will find her. Meanwhile, Gerda has started her own investigation. There is little information about the witch brigand. Chronicles only mention her as evil for the whole world, and do not give any dates for her life or death. The only one who might know more is Gerda herself. Iris suggested visiting the Dragon God Scale shop. Loud voices could already be heard from a distance, as if a conflict had broken out inside. Iris recognized Domina by her voice and quickly went inside, calling Volt to follow her. She rushed in first, sure that Domina was safe, but inside the room smelled like a fight had taken place. When Gaiman Glance saw Iris in her festive dress, he was taken aback and didn't recognize the usual fearless knight at first. Iris grabbed her head, thinking compliments were inappropriate right now. Volt spoke firmly to the stranger, ordering him to let Domina go. Domina let out a surprised breath when she realized this was the same newcomer who had defeated Cerberus. The seller, with a hint of reproach, pointed out that someone working in sales should remember faces better, then introduced himself. The girl holding Domina was looking for Volt, and he turned out to be the very guy who broke her sword. The seller immediately pointed at him and said, "This is the one." Iris wanted to step in, but Volt remembered that during their first visit, they had accidentally broken someone's sword. Iris tried to defend him, but Volt simply said, "Yes, it was me. I broke the sword." A stranger stared at him and said she would deal with him now. The hero thought she was challenging him to a duel and smiled, warning her that he was not an easy opponent. The girl's name was Sijun Alvenger, and she was a dwarf. This surprised Volt because Karen had described dwarves very differently. He greeted her, not expecting what she would say next. Sijun spoke up right away, saying she wanted to be his wife. Volt paused for a moment, unsure if he had heard her correctly, but then the meaning of the words became clear and his face suddenly turned pale. His eyes froze in shock as he realized that this girl had actually just proposed marriage. Even if that was not the case, her words did not make sense. Volt simply could not understand how this was possible. The girls watching from the side were shocked. A date with Iris had just turned into an absurd scene with another person proposing. In Leodice's opinion, this was just Volt's usual way. Wherever he went, something strange always happened. Rika had no idea how he managed it. Excitement filled Nira as she waited for what would happen next, knowing a climax was coming. Leodice could already sense the sparks that were about to ignite. Volt kept wondering where she got such an idea, and how anyone could suggest marriage to a stranger. This was the first time he heard her name. He hoped it wasn't some dwarven custom. Domina started to doubt if she was truly a dwarf. Most adult dwarves only reached up to the waist, but this one was almost as tall as a human. Sijun explained that she was a dwarf and also had giant blood from her mother. Iris nodded with surprise because such a mix was rare. Sijun turned to Volt and asked directly what it would take to win his heart. The other girls urged her to stop, saying this was not the right time or place. But as Sijun rushed to hug him, Volt quickly stepped aside. Suddenly, they grabbed each other's hands and started to wrestle, as if they were in a makeshift ring. Volt looked at her with surprise, not quite understanding what kind of duel this was. He used only a small part of his strength, which would have been more than enough for an ordinary person. Win. But Sijun explained that what drives her is not strength, but the dream of becoming a legendary blacksmith. The hero felt surprised and chose to respect her determination. With a smile, Volt replied, "All right, I will add a bit more power." As soon as he pressed harder, Seojun almost fell backward but managed to hold her ground. Volt realized she was not someone who gave up easily. Still, at this pace, either the floor would crack soon or she would. Two lizards entered the shop, arguing. One accused his brother of spending all their money on drinks if left alone. Another one pointed out that the brother would soon be the leader of the tribe. Before he could finish his sentence, his body flew toward the display. Right in front of him, Volt was trying to pin Seojun to the ground. The lizards watched and sighed, thinking that this strange person was at it again. They decided they had seen enough for today. Volt started to think they understood each other, but then realized he did not even know their names until now. Doman shouted that the hero was interfering with his business, the customers left, and the seller became furious. Volt agreed that he was right and suggested Shijun surrender. She still wanted to keep fighting, but Daman had heard everything himself and believed this situation should have ended a long time ago. In the end, all three of them were thrown out of the shop and onto the street. Volt sighed, knowing it was too late to say anything now. Then he remembered he was supposed to be on a date and apologized to Iris before leaving her alone. Domino pointed out that she should consider how she feels. The hero agreed because the comment was fair. Iris smiled. Everything was fine, and now there was a chance to check something. Next to Shijun stood her battle hammer, a huge weapon meant for real fighting. The group decided to stop for a meal and have a conversation. The girl explained that this hammer is a family artifact of the dwarves made 300 years ago. Her family comes from a line of warriors, but she chose to become a blacksmith. The dream is to create a masterpiece as great as this hammer. That is why leaving the village became necessary. Volt asked what she hopes to achieve. The girl confirmed that there are no more craftsmen left in the gnome village. Her goal is directly connected to this. Learned on her own at first, but realized a mentor was necessary. With her family's blessing, set out to find one. Like many other adventurers, arrived in this city. Iris raised her hand, wanting to ask something. Perhaps her sudden proposal to Volt was connected to this. Still, the hero did not understand how it had come to this. Shijun took out a wrapped sword and asked to be heard. This weapon marked the beginning of everything. She made it just before leaving her hometown. Volt examined the sword and noticed an interesting numbering system, similar to a signature style. Among dwarves, it is tradition to start with model number 0 as a tribute to themselves. This sword, broken by Volt, was called the Shijun sword. There was no engraving on it. If the name had been there, no one would have touched it. The girl said she is still a beginner. It will be at least 10 more years before she earns personalized marks. A smile appeared on the hero's face. Modesty truly is a great trait. Some artists could learn from it. Memories of a world just beginning came back to him. Mara thought that Volt had noticed her, but the girls held her back. Shijun explained that she arrived here 6 months ago and became an adventurer to survive. Volt was surprised to hear she missed the training. Iris explained that warrior races can take a practical exam instead. This is called the giant quota. With the guild certificate in hand, she started working as an adventurer and also learned blacksmithing at the forge. The heroes agreed that her plan made a lot of sense, but every blacksmith shop turned her away, saying it was not work for women. Iris realized this hurt her. Shijun clenched her fists, prepared for prejudice, but what hurt most was that no one believed she came from the gnomes. The main character felt sympathy because he remembered a time when no one believed him and assumed he was part of a religious cult. Volt handed her a piece of pie and offered it to eat. Shijun smiled, thinking he was being kind. Still, it almost looked as if he was feeding a little animal. Despite carrying a battle hammer, her clothes were torn, her stomach empty, and her bag light. He decided to find out if she was truly alone. The girl admitted it is hard for her to be around people, so she prefers to work alone. Volt agreed that this can be challenging. However, Shijun shared that she has already reached the 3rd level. Everyone was surprised to see a 3rd level reached in just 6 months. This was truly impressive. She explained that it was all thanks to the M. Gelner hammer. While not very precise, it is extremely powerful. She had used it herself to defeat strong monsters, but barely had enough to eat. Sometimes there was not enough money for food or a place to sleep. Volt remembered that their journeys had been very different. One day, returning from a guild task hungry and exhausted, Shijun suddenly realized her sword was missing. Fatigue and hunger made it hard to focus, and she couldn't remember where she had been. For 2 months, the sword was thought to be lost. Only today, when she entered the dragon god's scale shop, did she find it by accident, but it was already broken. This discovery shocked her. That is where she met Volt and decided she wanted to marry him. As soon as she said this, he asked her to pause at that moment. Volt noticed that everything made sense until she suddenly jumped straight to marriage. He could not see how the wedding was connected to the rest. When there are no blacksmiths left in the gnome village and the younger generation is not interested in learning, the skills to work with demonic ore will disappear. Shijun stands as the last hope for the village and perhaps for the entire story. The hero decided to ask one more question. Shijun was already getting ready to leave. Volt learned that only dwarves can forge weapons from demonic ore. The girl confirmed this and explained that anyone who needs such a weapon will need a dwarf's help. He wanted to get the ore so she could forge a sword for him. Shijun knew all about the ore from the documents and had some experience. Iris and Volt were impressed. Feeling unsure, she lacked experience and did not have her own workshop. Right now, she is just a traveler, and the hero thought this was too expensive for her. Shijun refused to give up. She dreamed of creating the most powerful magic sword in history. This determination sparked a new idea in Volt. With admiration, he addressed the daughter of the giant and the gnome and told her to listen. With a smile, he announced that from now on, she was part of his team. However, the girl did not understand what that meant. Simply put, he wanted her to join Volt's team. Marriage was not being considered yet. If she keeps living this way, her dream will never come true, and she knew that too. Shijun admitted that since arriving in the capital, all she had done was fight monsters and had never held. The situation called for a decision about the blacksmith's tool. Volt made sure she would begin her training as soon as possible. However, the girl misunderstood and thought this was a marriage proposal. Shijun apologized, but felt truly happy about his words. She bowed and said she was glad to meet him. Meanwhile, the other girls talked about the new team member. Ludaasa thought Shijun would look great as a warrior. Iris realized she had not talked about her job yet and asked if she could speak. Shijun did not understand what was being discussed, so Iris explained that she definitely needs to have her ID. Kaers started to worry that she had lost hers, but then Shijun remembered she still had it. She was still learning the Laharian language and could only read names. Volt mentioned that she would need to learn to read properly. Iris looked at the document and saw the class was Berserk. The hero felt uneasy, as if they had found something troubling again. Kaers agreed, saying it was a rare and surprising profession. Something else was even more surprising. If the information was correct, Shijun was only 10 years old. Volt paused in shock, trying to process the news. The girls who were watching also found it hard to believe. Volt asked her directly, and she calmly said she was really 10 years old. For her, there was nothing unusual about it. Volt never imagined what a mix of giant and gnome blood might look like, and now there was an example right in front of him. But the most surprising part was her marriage proposal at such a young age. Iris gently touched her chest and felt a sense of insecurity. Shijun explained that in the village of gnomes, adulthood begins at age 12, only 2 years away. Volt noticed that with each new sentence, the situation felt more and more unbelievable. As Iris wrestled with her thoughts, Shijun turned to Volt and asked for a favor, to find something out. It seemed to her that the woman next to him was his lover, and she wanted to find out if that was true. A cold feeling washed over Iris. Volt was also caught off guard by this, looked awkwardly at Iris, noticing her red cheeks, and replied that it was not true. He remembered that he hadn't introduced her yet. He explained that she was his guard. They stayed at the same inn and had fought side by side more than once. This means they are companions on their journey, and Shijun understood this right away. Still, Volt wondered how someone with so much experience in adventure had not heard about Iris yet. It seemed her interests were limited to blacksmithing and food. Kaers admitted this was her first time meeting a berserker. That job is very rare. Even she was surprised, which shows how serious this is. Race, age, and gender did not matter. Among all the classes, the berserker was the rarest. Iris still did not know how to gain such power. Without the right gift, becoming a berserker was impossible. This made her even more fascinating to Volt. Iris stood up and asked Shijun for a favor. Luda smiled and covered her face with her hand, as if she already guessed what would happen next. Iris wanted to see the berserker's skills for herself. The girl reached out her hand to Shijun and said it would be an honor to spar with her if she agreed. Iris waited for a response while Shijun finished chewing her pastry. The audience was amazed because this girl looked just like the famous Rose Waste. Some thought they were just seeing things. Volt warned Iris that Shijun is only at level 3, while she has already reached level 12. The girl swung her hammer confidently and said that in berserk mode, her strength reaches level 13, so everything is fine. Iris just shook her head and quietly said that romantic walks are probably not for her, then took out a hidden knife. The observers paused as the scene quickly turned into a romantic confrontation. A smile played on Ludus's lips as tension filled the air. Rika quietly thought that this trio moved with the calm confidence of experienced veterans. Ludus disagreed, saying the hammer did all the work, just look at it. For now, Iris only blocked and dodged, focusing on learning her opponent's rhythm instead of attacking. After another attempt, it was noted that Shijun's swing was impressive, but each time the hammer sank deeper into the ground. Shijun focused on landing a direct hit, knowing that just one accurate strike would be enough. She swung, but Iris stopped the hammer with her blade like it was nothing. Shijun's cheeks puffed up in frustration. The gnome girl insisted on trying again, certain that nothing could stop her. Iris quickly dodged and pointed out that relying too much on weapons is not a good idea. The crowd cheered for Iris's victory and the girls clapped, saying it was great. Rika eagerly raised her hands high, and Mira felt relieved there were no serious injuries. Still, she noticed that Shijun had no intention of stopping. Disappointment showed on Iris's face because without Berserk the fight seemed boring. Surprise filled her as Shijun held back from using his ability since without it, victory was out of reach for her. Standing up, the dwarf woman sighed and said that if changing were that easy, she would not still be fighting. Iris wanted to remember how she first turned on Berserk back then. She asked to remember that moment. Shijun shared that there was a festival in the village of gnomes, and she really wanted to try roasted griffin. At the exact moment the tasty treat was taken from her hands, the switch activated. Volt realized that the ability responds to a strong outside trigger. Iris suggested trying a different approach. Iris took Volt by the hand and told him she was taking him away from this city. Shijun froze, her eyes wide open. Nira, Ludessa, and Rika were completely speechless. Iris had surprised everyone with this unexpected move. Pulling the boy with her, Iris told him to follow without asking any questions. A blush spread across Ludessa's face, clearly embarrassed by the heated scene. Nara, on the other hand, shouted that finally something interesting was happening. Rika glanced nervously at Shijun, sensing that something had gone wrong. With her head down, Shijun could not understand how Iris could do such a thing. She had already imagined herself as Volt's wife. Shijun's expression grew serious. Gripping her war hammer tightly, she whispered that she would not forgive. The wind began to swirl around her, and lightning covered her body as she entered berserker mode. Now Ludessa felt sure that this girl was truly level 13 and ready for battle. Shijun quickly gave chase and could already see the fugitives ahead. Iris glanced back with a satisfied smile, knowing that everything was just beginning. Shijun roared with anger, prepared to crush her completely. Her feet pressed into the ground so firmly that cracks appeared all around. Ludessa glanced at the others and invited them to join her. Mira stepped forward right away. Rika noticed that instead of fear, curiosity appeared on the girls' faces. Turning around, the hero called out to Iris, sensing that things were getting more and more chaotic. Volt noticed with surprise that Shijun's behavior was very unusual for an ordinary berserker. Iris nodded, agreeing that only she could act this way.